in the council chambers at Washington City Hall. We'll start with our workshop meeting. Council, I'll call for a motion to approve the agenda as outlined.
Mayor, I can make that motion to approve our workshop agenda meeting for May 14th, 2025.
I have a motion by Councilman Ivey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Coates. All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved. We have 5 items this evening or this afternoon. And we will start with our first item, which is the Washington Dome feasibility study. I'll invite Assistant Leisure Services Director Paul Walker and Charisse Walker with Avenue Consultants to come forward. I don't think there's any relation there.
No.
But I just noticed that it's the same last name.
Yeah. So good afternoon, Council, Mayor, City Manager. We're excited to have this process started. It's something we've been thinking about for a while. Charisse has some of the details. Any questions, we're happy to answer, but we'll turn the time over to her to go through this presentation.
Thanks, Paul.
I mean, we're probably all related if you go back far enough.
Right?
All right. My name is Charisse Walker. I work for Avenue Consultants. We've been hired by the city to conduct this feasibility study. The funding for this study has come from a grant from the Utah Outdoor Recreation Department. So there is no cost to the city at this point. We're doing this from grant funding. Okay, I wasn't sure if there was a certain direction I needed to point this thing. Washington Dome, many of you are probably familiar with it and see it every day. Our study area is outlined here. You can kind of see, to orient yourself, the area we're looking at is south of Washington Dam Road and west of the Southern Parkway. And, you know, there's people that are already using it for recreation. And so this is kind of what has initiated this study. Right now, this is just an introduction. We'll be back a couple of times throughout the process to update you with information, but we're just kind of exploring the existing conditions, gathering information about that area. Part of that is the property ownership. So a big portion of this is BLM land. There is some private ownership as well. And part of this is just to understand, as the development gets closer to the dome, if we want to have recreation area, access points are going to become important. And so it's timely to think about that as we look at what's already going on out there. So for our goals for our project, the goal is to expand and enhance that recreational experience while preserving the natural landscape, being good stewards of the area that we have. We will be developing a plan with a lot of public input. We've got a steering committee that will be vetting recommendations for us, and also kind of looking at some of those specifics for implementation. At this point, this is just a planning exercise. This doesn't include the environmental study that would need to take place or the implementation costs. So right now we're just at the feasibility point. So this is a little look at our schedule. We're anticipating having everything wrapped up by the end of the year. So you can see we've got 4 steering committee meetings planned and then a couple of outreach opportunities. Right now we're in early stages. We have a great survey online, which I'm hoping you guys will be interested in completing and sharing with anyone that you know that would be interested in giving feedback on our activities there. We'll be going out and looking at the existing trails, looking at the existing conditions, and working closely with a lot of stakeholder groups. So this is just a little look at what's existing now as far as the trails. And those unpaved, the dotted green lines show the unpaved hiking trails, which is being reported from All Trails. So that's a voluntary app. When people go out hiking, they can track it through that app. And this is some of the data that we've been able to get from there. We are coordinating with the water tank project that's going on. So we're aware of that, and we'll be kind of engaging that, and has the potential to kind of leverage for some of the improvements that the city might choose to do. For our outreach, so we have some in-person. We were at Cotton Fest, right next to the Parks booth. It was a great experience. It was my first experience going to Cotton Days, so I had a lot of fun there. So we've got some in-person opportunities in addition to kind of the general public interactions. We're also going to be meeting with some one-on-one or stakeholder meetings, because we know that there are some groups that we want to get specific feedback from. You know, talking with some of the user groups, the mountain biking folks, the people that are hiking, the people that have grazing permits for that area. We really want to make sure that we're understanding all aspects of who's using this area and how they're using it. Like I said, we'll be back a couple times throughout this process to keep you updated. We also have some online materials. So there's a project website, washingtondome.com, and we have an active survey for our community that we're running through June. And then there's also on there a comment map that will be active throughout the whole study. And people can go and put pins, draw lines, make comments, comment on other people's comments. So it will give people the opportunity to be very specific. The survey is a little bit more general. It's geared towards people who recreate there and then also people who live nearby, because it's important to be good neighbors as you look at improvements that can be made. This is just a little bit of the interaction from Cotton Fest. A couple of my team members there, they had never walked in a parade. They were very excited to do that. I was happy to give them that opportunity. And then we had a map there, and we just kind of chatted with folks. This is a little bit more close-up of our dot polling exercise we did. So on the right-hand side, you can see one of the questions we asked is, do you use Washington Dome for recreation? 75% of the folks who came by said no, 25% said yes. We had some interesting conversations. Some people used it. They didn't know that's what it was named. That's what it was called. So I can tell you, anybody on that list knows more about Washington Dome now than they did at Cotton Days. And then the other one was just kind of an idea of, we know that some of those activities are happening in that area, and just kind of want to get an idea of where people are preferences lie there. And this is a snapshot of the website. It's fairly simple right now. We have not uploaded a lot of mapping materials right now. We've got the survey active, we've got the comment map, and then just a little introduction to what the plan is. And this is what that comment map looks like. So you can kind of see, people can put individual points or draw lines indicating things. We think this will be a really great tool to get some very specific geographical feedback and input. So I think that's about it. I'm open to questions, comments.
I've got a question I was hoping you can help me with. Recognizing that Washington City doesn't own this land, that there's a BLM landowner, can you help just with the narrative of how the feasibility study and your work and Washington City connect, or where they connect and how?
Absolutely. So we know that the BLM is committed to public recreation, access to public lands. We are engaging very closely with them. We just had our first steering committee kickoff meeting earlier today. We have several BLM staff that are part of that group. They were interested and excited about the potential, and really appreciated being part of the team. So.
And one of the things we hope to get from this study is a plan that the city can use to move forward. So this is just gathering information. In the future, we know we'll have to do environmental studies. This is just the first step. If we want to do any improvements, right now we're finding out what would be the best improvements to make and how to go about those steps.
So what does it mean for all the private property owners, property within this area?
That's a good question. So we talked a little bit about that earlier today, and kind of the challenges for developing some of those areas, because they have hillside regulation, they have water access, that kind of thing. So we don't want to encroach on anybody's right
No,
to
I
their
understand that, but
land
they
use.
own the property, right? So
Yes.
whether or not it's developable or not, you've got to get some sort of agreement or easement from them to be able to use it as a rec area.
Absolutely.
So I'm just curious what that process looks like for them and.
I am not sure what.
Do you want to go back to the
Correct.
slide that shows the property ownership?
And when trails are developed in that section, we will include the property owners. Some of this we'll see, maybe we want to put trails in those private property parcels, maybe we don't.
Whether or not you have trails in there, you're encouraging people to recreate in the area. And then, again, if it's private property, I don't know how you do that without getting some sort of agreement, so.
Yeah, and some of the feedback we're trying to get now is this area is currently being used for recreation. So maybe one of the recommendations is we exclude certain areas or we limit certain activities of certain areas. That's some of the information we're trying to get right now.
I did have a friend that is on the list of owners that reached out to me about a year ago. We went and found his property, and he asked what the future was for that area. And, in our conversation, I asked him what his plans were, and of course, they want to develop if they can. But like, as you said, it's the grade difference is really extreme, like 30, maybe 40, even percent. So it's going to be challenging. But I think probably as we bring this out, if we already know ahead what is developable as far as, and what maybe is more challenging than what, those type of things, I think it'd be helpful too. I know that he's been approached by other property owners saying, let's put this together, so. So,
Yeah, and that's some of the information we're trying to get with this study.
I think it's great if you want, if we want to get them all involved and have them say, yeah, we're all for it and everything else. But once you start putting out public documents that say you're looking at doing a study on your property for recreation, I don't know that I'm super comfortable with that without having them on board up front.
Oftentimes you pick a study area that's actually larger than the areas that you would end up doing something with.
I get that,
Yeah.
but then the property owners also look at it and say, oh, wow, my value just went up. Wonder what I can get out of this, right? So I think, if you have the conversation, at least you're outlining expectations of what outcomes may come from it. Otherwise you exclude their properties and you change the boundaries and say, hey, we're looking at the BLM property and leave it at that and just exclude them.
So yeah, I think we should include them in the study because we should see what's feasible there.
I don't disagree as long as they're on board.
And that's fine. I'm just saying, I look at the hillside boundary, which goes way over all those properties. So all these areas are within, part of the study, I was gonna ask her, we're gonna do a hillside or a slope analysis as part of this area or not to determine what's feasible for development versus not.
Yeah, I think some of that is in the process right now. We also know some of that is an area that we've got the water tanks going in and nothing can be above the water tanks. We won't be able to supply them with water and the hillside. So there's some challenges to development out there. And these owners can be people that we meet with the one-on-one meetings.
Any additional questions for the walkers?
the walkers.
Or the mountain bikers or whoever else is on the trail?
We've got a parting gift. We've got stickers that say Washington Dome. There's the QR code to the survey and the website, so we'll pass those around.
Well,
Thank you for your time.
I really appreciate Paul, Sharice, and the whole group. Really appreciate your work. It'll be interesting to see what findings you have come back and where it goes from there. Paul, while you're there and close to the mic still, if this study does show some opportunity for, hiking or mountain biking or whatever may be, what would the next steps be and how would that be funded? Maybe that's too soon to ask the question, but just out of curiosity.
We've been thinking about the next steps in this. Like we've discussed, we've involved the BLM. There will be an environmental study. We've applied for some grants to go through the NEPA process. So we're hopeful that we can get the feasibility study and the NEPA done with grants from the state before the city has to outlay any funds. We should have a good plan and a good base before the city needs to take any action.
Apologize, Paul. I was just going to mention that most of this would fall in the hillside zone as well. So
Yeah,
we have to
correct.
work in conjunction with that as well. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The next item on the workshop agenda is parking enforcement, city parks. Jeremy, you want to lead out on this discussion, on this
Yeah.
feedback?
I'd just like to have a little bit of a free-flowing discussion with the council and make you aware of an issue that's been ongoing, a little bit for the Parks Department and also for the Police Department. We're starting to see some parking issues at some of our city parks, and I think this is just a spillover from development and things that are happening. And two specifically, we're seeing a lot of parking issues at the Canyon Park, the Hellhole Park, as we get spillover from those apartments. The apartments have been a little more aggressive about parking enforcement and how many cars people can have, and even potentially charging people to park. So we're starting to see spillover if you have excessive vehicles or extra vehicles into that park. That's been an issue for quite some time. And we're also seeing an issue at Treasure Valley Park with some of the neighbors down there we have one specifically who kind of runs a business out of his house and doesn't want to keep all those cars there, so he's parking them in the park, or people that have a trailer or an RV. We're starting to see more of this all over our community, but specifically in those two parks, we're seeing issues. The police have done a really good job with parking enforcement. They've done some parking tickets and different things. But what I'd like to gauge is your interest in putting up some signage that says no overnight parking, no parking past 10 p.m., towing will be enforced. I think that's really the next step, because we give tickets, that takes people away a little bit, but they're really coming back and it's becoming different people and problems. So I'd like to hear your feedback.
Council feedback, Councilman Coates.
My first comment is just like the no fishing sign, right? Is the sign really going to help? Or
What the sign would do is if we actually say that towing is enforced after 10 p.m., then the police could call a tow truck and actually have the car moved. So they could start with tickets, and if they start to see that
what's the earliest
problem.
park there?
When do the parks open? 6 a.m. So you could be there at 6 a.m. when the park opens, and you'd have to be when the park closes.
Yeah, my only concern that comes up is the morning, because I know a lot of people go run early in the morning in the summers, which start at 5 usually, a lot of people. So I'd want them to be able to park that early, but at night, 10 p.m. seems reasonable to me.
I don't think we're looking at any issue with people that are actually parking and using the trails. What we're looking at are issues with people that are using it as an overnight parking for their convenience. They're not using the parks or the trails, they're just using it as a parking lot.
How does an officer know if he rolls up at 5 o'clock and sees a car parked there?
I doubt they're rolling up at 5 a.m. I think they're going at 11, 12, 1, and
Okay.
there's just those there, but
Couple thoughts. I've always thought that about the restrooms too. I hate that they're not open at 5 because people show up at 5 to go run or bike or whatever in that early summer heat. I know Councilman Ivy's there every week, and
I'm actually very sympathetic to the councilman's comments here. I'm nodding along as he's talking. Yeah,
that is
Jeremy.
good feedback, and that's something we could look at. But how do you feel about towing vehicles that are there all night?
I think we have to get a handle on it, is my opinion, because I agree you can't park in a public space like that, especially the Hellhole Trailhead was not designed to handle those apartments. It was a small trailhead with a small parking lot, so we have to enforce it. Treasure Valley, I've never seen an issue at Treasure Valley. I didn't know that was happening, and that's by my house, but I don't hang out at the park late at night, so.
I think that one's been limited to one or two people who are trying to use it as overflow from their home. But again, none of those parks were designed with enough parking. Anything other than park or trails really weren't designed. And especially Canyon Park, Hellhole, it's such limited parking there that you get people who you do want them to be able to park there, ride their bikes, do their thing. But if we have anybody spilling over from the apartments, it clogs up that parking immediately, so.
When I was involved with the park, we specifically made sure that we let people know that's not overnight parking, and we put the fence line in there to try to curb that, make it difficult for people to get walking around and whatnot, because we figured they were just from ease of parking, they would park there and go straight in, right? So we tried to do everything we could to curb it, but I don't have a problem putting signage up, and I don't have a problem starting to tow people. It's only gonna take a couple of tows and they'll get
Yeah, it won't take long. And the tickets have done a pretty good job. They think they've curbed most of the problem with ticketing people, but
I don't have a problem with that at all. So in fact, I would say, yeah, let's do that. Let's put some signs up and tow people if necessary. And like Councilman said, wouldn't take a whole lot of tows to get the point across. So
yeah,
Obviously, if we have problem areas, a couple of signs in those problem areas is great, but I don't see, or does,
Yeah,
need
spot.
or want to go further than where we have those problem areas, so.
I agree.
I think that it'd be important that we also be a little bit preemptive in letting the citizens know why. Because they're gonna look at that as a big parking lot, there's no one there. Why can't we be there? Well, we understand those reasons, but for people that live there, it's like, well, my neighbors from out of town, they'd had this RV. I think education, maybe articles in our newsletter, and just trying to let the citizens know that this isn't just the city trying to be overly restrictive, that there's actual reasons behind it. There's reasons for the police, there's reasons for security, there's reasons for vandalism, and there's just a lot of reasons for this that I would like to get out. I have no problem with the signage either. I think it's a good idea. And I think, but then trying to help our citizens to understand why. That would be something that I think Phil would be important. And then enforcing it as we need to. We don't want to make a provision or a law or ordinance that we're not willing to enforce. And so when the signs go up, I don't think we have a choice but to not follow through.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Casperson, anything to add? You have your marching orders there, Jeremy, feedback you need?
Yeah, we'll work with the Parks Department and the police and come up with a good solution there. I think the towing would be the final solution. It's not, we don't want to do predatory towing. We don't want to hire someone to be, checking that lot every night. We just want to make it a final solution for the police when people don't get the other hits. Okay, thank you.
Next item is a Long Valley Trails update. Don Bean, you come forward and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. First, I want to say thank you for approving the PCD the last time we met, and we said after 60 days we'd come back and tell you where we are with the second access, so that's why I'm here. At the time that we were approving the PCD, the second access was being reviewed by the engineer to make sure it fit the standards, and was approved, and we had since started on the secondary road. It's nearing its grading now. They were just working on it as I saw them as I was driving on my way over here. We're planning on finishing that within the next 2 months. They hit a lot of rock that was unexpected, but it's taken a little longer than they thought. But we'll have that done shortly. In the meantime, we're keeping that emergency secondary access open. We're anxious to get the second access open and traffic moving through and getting the subgrades down as soon as possible. But within 2 months, we'll have that done. And then we will have it paved within 1,500 units of the, finished in the development.
How many units are you at now?
We're at about 550.
Okay, so you're gonna grade so that it's easily accessible, but at the
Yeah, and that will be done in the
1,500
next
mark
two-
is the trigger for pavement?
That's
For
correct.
asphalt?
Yeah. It'll be paid before we hit 1,500.
Is that written in our PC or development agreement?
1,568 was when we were to reevaluate it and to see if it needed to be paved, but we'll commit now to, at 1,500, it will be paved.
That makes sense to me. I appreciate you coming back and giving us that update on that.
Sure.
I'm not saying done. I'm just saying I
I
appreciate
can't
that
let, we can't let
information.
Don off the hook this
No,
easy.
I'm just saying
I'm-
thanks for that
I'm just
information
kind
from
of
you.
keeping him on a nice little reel here, so.
Yeah, did you have any other questions on?
Any other questions or comments for Don?
Something
ahead,
maybe
Councilor.
off topic, Mayor, if we got a minute. Just how are things going? What do you see selling? I mean, your smaller lots, bigger
Our
houses?
sales are
What-
very
where
good
are you-
and steady. I hear that the market has slowed in most areas, in southern Utah a little bit, and less over the last couple months. It's picked up a little bit this month, but we've been steady the entire time. We've hit our goals every month. We have a set standard how many homes we're starting of several different product types, and we've hit that every month for the last year. and we don't anticipate changing much in the coming years.
So there's no distinction between maybe the higher density, smaller or lower prices and the other homes?
We start a different amount of everyone, like we're doing about 5 alley load townhomes, 5 front load townhomes. We do 4 cottage lots, we do 4 ramblers, and we start 3 single-family homes every month. And then a couple of nightly rentals.
The secondary access that will eventually be a, permanent kind of backdoor entrance, can you remind us the name of that road?
That's Long Valley Road.
Okay, that's what I thought. So that's the main drag through, and then it will connect to George Washington Boulevard at that, where it goes underneath the 7 there
Correct.
onto George Washington Boulevard.
Correct. They've taken that big mountain that was there when they left it, when they had the underpass done.
Yeah.
And it's almost ready for, well, if you have a bigger truck, you can drive through now. But we're anticipating, again, within 2 months, it'll be completely ready.
That'll be great.
Yeah.
Along that, if I recall, along Long Valley Road, it's also master planned for a trail.
Correct.
Can you speak to that?
Sure.
And Paul's here too on standby.
Paul and I met with the UDOT, that was going to be a UDOT trail, at least the portion through BLM land to our southern property. We thought that they had the funding to put that in immediately. We're grading, as we grade the road out, we're grading in with that 12-foot trail included. But they are not going to be able to build that trail right away as we anticipated, but we'll just have it ready for when they are.
Okay.
And it'll connect to our trail that goes through Long Valley, and that is anticipated to be a public trail through the middle of the valley.
I could see long-term that access point almost being more utilized than the Washington Dam Road outlet.
Yeah, it'd be convenient for us and all of the residents there. It'd be really nice.
Yeah.
And I love having all of that commercial right in that area.
Yeah, it's coming alive.
Again, a great benefit to our community.
Additional questions for Don?
Discussion about Washington Dome, just west
Yeah.
of you guys.
I was excited about it. I didn't know that was called Washington Dome. I was one of those people.
Most
that didn't
don't.
know. But I'm excited about that. I think that's great. I would love to have all that area a little more organized rather than just go wherever you want over there.
Well, do the survey.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Don.
Anything else?
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for following back up like we asked. Next item is a council budget discussion. Jeremy, you want to kick that one off?
Sure. I think this is a follow-up on an email that was sent. We passed the preliminary budget 2 weeks ago. And the only thing I've had feedback on is just some council members or all the council members wanted to have a discussion about your particular council budgets. So I sent you an email with that information on it. Based on our council retreat, we decided we wanted to kind of break it down by council member and give everybody sort of an allotment and then allow them to make their spending that way rather than what we've done in the past, which was just an overall council number. I just open it up to you guys to have whatever discussion you want to have on it. And then Brian's taking some notes and we'll make adjustments. Bring them back.
Yes, so I asked to have it put on the work session. I just wanted to make it clear, all the things that I think were addressed, but I'm trying to find your email, Jeremy, sorry. So I can pull it up. It wasn't. No,
Yes.
oh, I found it. Well, I found the one that Councilman Belliston marked up, so for his. I think as far as my end, I don't think the biggest thing on my mind was the national LCT. Don't think we've ever done that, and I don't think we should budget for it. So in my opinion, I don't need that. And I actually never go to the Utah League of City of Towns. I've never gone in the 5 years. I've focused on other things for me. But I mean, if you budget for it, I'm happy to keep it in there. I probably won't spend it.
I think your discussion brings up a question in my mind, which is each council member might want to do a different thing with their stewardship or their assignments. And one thing that we do with maybe the department heads is I'll give them an allotment for training. And then they might come and say, well, I went to this one last year, but this is more pertinent to what I'm doing this year. We kind of allow them to decide what they think is the more pertinent training each year or what they would like to do. So I just like to maybe throw that out there for consideration, is that maybe we don't schedule everything if you don't want to go to the League of Cities and Towns, but maybe you do want to go to something that has to do with some other part of your assignment, or just your general council assignment that you're interested in. Maybe you want to go to a land use training, or you want to go to something. Do you want to narrow it down, or do you just want to give an amount and let everybody know?
What I thought the discussion was in January was, okay, we're gonna set an amount, and then council members can use that amount as we please, and we just set it, here's a max amount per council member, we can choose to go to this, that, or the other, or, so I was kind of surprised to see this come out as, over and above of that amount. If it needs to be adjusted, we need to look at it and see what's a relevant adjustment to move it to. But my goal is to spend as little of the taxpayer dollars as possible. I do see some value in League of Cities and Towns.
Yeah.
But, some of the stuff in there for, chamber lunches and whatever else, I pay for that myself. I don't need a taxpayer to pay for it,
My comment back is, if you don't use it, it doesn't get used. It doesn't go away. If we do it by council member and you say, look, I don't want to go to the league, but I also don't find anything else that is super appealing to me this year, I'll just leave it there. Then it goes back into our savings, back into our general fund.
that's why I thought we had undefined and just a blanket amount.
I may have missed the conversation
I think we went
confused. That's why.
all different ways when we
Yeah,
discussed
look-
it. I just think our goal was, hey, per council member gets a certain amount, certain obligations require different amounts. And I just wanted it clear, and I think it got really defined. And again, but I also think the National League and City and Towns that's the one I looked at, I'm like, I'm never going to that. I go to the Utah League Cities and Towns, and so, but I haven't gone because I find other things that I do. I go to the power board stuff and that kind of stuff, but and a lot of my committees are paid by those different committees. I don't need a big budget, I guess, on my side. And I know we're talking small dollars compared. I just want it clear that for me, like I look at this and think, okay, if you put 1,500 to 2,000 in mine, I probably won't even spend that. But if I do, I do, and use it toward whatever makes sense. So that's how I'd rather just a lump sum.
So I think the question is on those, so you have the kind of individual council budgets. Do you want to leave the national LCT of 1,500 per, or do you want to make that a discretionary or just pull it out?
I just soon pull it out. I see no.
Pull it
I
out?
see no benefit in that one.
I don't think any of us have, I've never even considered going to the national.
I don't think any of us have
league, and I
gone.
don't think that's the most benefit. I don't know.
I'll just take it on me. I don't know where, but we'll take it.
Brian?
I'm always happy. Brian loves taking things out of the budget. So that is,
Take that out of the budget.
All right.
so if we took that line item out of each council member, are we good? Are we good where we're?
And that would take us, well, that'd take, like I said, I'd be at 2,300, which makes sense if I decide to go to UTCS and then the miscellaneous.
I like leaving in the league,
That's fine.
for everybody, just because,
I don't want,
yeah, everybody has the option.
I've been to the mid-year, I just haven't gone to the main one, so.
Okay. Everybody feel good? Councilman Bellison, feel good about that?
Let me be clear, Mayor. You're just we're leaving it broken down with the LCT taken out?
What I heard.
We're doing
Do
this
you
year?
like the breakdown like that, or do you want to just have a lump?
Well, I still like the breakdown, but I want you to spend it on what you feel like you want to spend it on. If, again, you guys tell me what you want to do. This is your money, but I would say, again, if I put in 1,500 for the League of Cities and Towns in Salt Lake, and you decide you didn't want to go to that, but you wanted to go to a land use training, or you wanted to go to something that was,
Really cost that much?
you talk hotel rooms and
Registration.
Because I don't want to spend the money.
registration is $500 a piece, and then we get hotel room for 2 or 3 nights. And Salt Lake is not cheap, so
But then
Free,
if you
free
want to do
breakfast at the
something else with
hotel,
it,
lunch included in the conference, we'll be all right.
I think this group is an elected body and you should be able to say, well, I want to spend my $500 on something else. And as long as you don't go over your amount that's been allocated to you, we're not going to get fussy about it. That's my
Okay.
opinion, and
But if we leave it
what you want to do.
broken down on this and something comes up, like all of a sudden, I don't know, you bought T-shirts for the youth group or whatever, right out of your budget, and it's $1,000, could we not do that then?
You can, it just wouldn't come out of your individual budget if you didn't. What you're saying?
No, I'm saying, say,
Get
I
it out
didn't
of
go
you.
to the league that year, but I took that, I want to move that money to do whatever I decided to
I
do.
would say yes. I would say you can spend it on whatever you want to spend it on. If you want to,
So you're
But-
saying I have $2,300 this year to, if I choose to,
I would say. Again,
But this is
the
an
group that gets
estimate
to
of where it
decide
would be
but-
used then.
Yes.
Okay.
So the reason we broke it out is just to say, this is kind of how we got to these numbers. It's not that that's what you have to spend it on, but this is how we got to the number. Because like, for instance, your work with the power board, you know, it comes out of it comes out of the power, but it's important for you, if you want to be able to go to those meetings as part of your assignment, right? So,
part of this budget,
no, because it comes out of the power budget, but.
council has a,
Then, in my mind, the discretionary amount that we discussed in January, that goes away and this is substituted in place.
I'm totally happy with that if you guys are good with that.
so I think, this is my opinion, so you guys tell me, is we take out the LCT and then that dollar amount is the discretionary fund.
And for that,
Only because Brett's not going to spend it, I'll say.
double Councilman Henderson's allotment.
Jeremy, I
Use
think
it
I,
for his mosquito. Oh.
Bit of honey. We're doing bit of honey instead of Tootsie Rolls.
we got it. That's, I'm done subsidizing this council with parade candy.
I think we have sufficient instruction.
Mayor,
Okay. Good conversation.
for letting me discuss it more, everyone.
You're welcome. All right, last item on the work session, and I thought with this many items we'd go long, but the last item is Landfill Road. Jeremy, you're on a roll. Why don't you kick this one off too?
I don't know that this is my,
Oh, do we,
but
Blake or John?
the question
Come on
is
up,
just-
John. John, you're supposed to take stuff off your bosses. You guys come up together, double team this one.
the
You
top-
sit there too comfortably, usually with the Dr. Pepper. I could actually use one tonight.
Can verify this is Landfill Road.
Okay.
The topic is timing to rename it Countryway.
Okay, all right.
Surprise, speak to that.
Yes, so,
You have an hour.
really? Gosh, okay, I could take that. No, I probably can't. If you expect it, I can't do it, but, so I don't know a lot about this one other than the naming of it is, certainly the naming process is generally through community development. We're the side that puts the signs up after the names have been decided, but I don't know whether it has we were trying to get some help to repair it and to rebuild
Let me
it.
help you out. Let me bail you out a little bit.
That would be
All
great,
right.
because I'm kind of just thrown on this.
So if you look at the map here, you can see that the old landfill road went up to the new scale house.
Oh, yeah.
John's gonna be our Vanna White here. We gave that piece of the road, we abandoned that piece of the road and gave it to the solid waste district.
Abandoned the lower
And it would still be named Landfill Road, which would be appropriate because it's the spur that goes to the landfill.
But it won't be it won't be a road anymore.
It's a private,
They're calling it private.
we abandoned it, we gave it
Public.
to the
Mr.
district.
Chair of the
Just because
Solid
I'm the
Waste
chair doesn't
District.
mean that it's mine.
Now the road does connect, so it connects all the way with Countryway. The suggestion is, when is the council ready for us to bring, we have to go through a process. We have to have a public hearing,
We have to go through a land use process to rename this road. So we just want to, are you ready now? What we would do is name it Country Way because it would start all the way at Telegraph and it would go all the way through to Washington Dam Road as Country Way.
Am I correct that there's, the only address that's off of that is the landfill?
Yeah.
So would they have to change to Country Way on all their stuff or no?
Well, that's why I'm suggesting that they just leave that little piece named Landfill Road, even though it's a private street. And they could just their address Landfill Road because their address actually comes off of that road, not off of Country Way.
That would work. The only, I mean, I know this was brought up once before, and I'm going to take the blame for not pushing forward. We were looking for additional funds to help us fix the road, and that's why I wanted to keep it Landfill Road until the development came, but I know the development's kind of coming. I'm torn because I still think we should kind of leave it landfill until the development actually comes. But if it came before this is my thought, if the development comes before, then we should work on it. If not, we should keep it landfill road to try to help us get some funding to fix that road because it's in need of some repair, and I don't think it should be 100% Washington City.
I agree with the fact that it shouldn't be 100% Washington City. I don't know if it makes a difference what it's named for the other cities, but
I agree or disagree, but it's sure easy to say, hey, it's called Landfill Road. Then, hey, it's Country Way. I don't know, just,
I think
I know, that's,
it's coming.
On the front end than the back end.
yeah. And I know this came up 6 months ago, and then I was working on it and didn't work on it because we were finishing up the building out there, and
I brought it forward several months ago and talked to Councilman Coates, and he had a concern that we checked back, and he felt like that it is okay now. But I think the main purpose for this consideration is when you just hear Landfill Road, not that our landfill isn't the best around, but you hear Landfill Road or you hear Country Way, I know which road name sounds better for our people that are traveling on Telegraph, and it kind of is a reflection of our city because it is our city, and it was Landfill Road for a long time, but now it's much more than that. And so you can make it Country Way from Telegraph clear to Washington Dam Road. I think that's a better look for our city, and I think that it just sounds better. And keeping that little spur landfill that goes into the landfill area, I think that makes sense. But I just think it's just better reflective of our city, of where we're at now with Country Way.
And I don't disagree, Councilman Ivy. I don't. I think eventually it will change. It's also not a bad thing to say, well, where's the landfill? Oh, there's the sign that says Landfill Road. I think it's going to lead me there off of Telegraph. Not saying
Just do a good job hiding it. You wouldn't even know it's there.
it's the goal, right? So it's too bad we can't hide the smell sometimes. But overall, it's good. I don't. That was my only thought. I don't have an issue one way or another. I just would like to see it happen when the development comes. And if it's coming now, then maybe now's the time. If it's not, then hold off.
I might, is it stated that Landfill Road that you see go on the two smaller prongs left and right, that those have already been abandoned? Or did we state that we need to do that?
We've abandoned the one that goes up to the landfill. We did that when they needed to move the gate. So we did that in a public process. Whoops. We haven't done the one to the south. It still needs to be done to abandon that little spur that's no longer being used.
So I just thought of something in the contract with Republic. There's certifications based on the road names. We probably have to do kind of an amendment at the district with that contract, clarifying with the road name change, because they're required to pick up trash along Landfill Road. And I'd hate for them to say, well, that's not Landfill Road anymore. And that's per the contract until 2040 or 2030.
Blake and then Councilman Henderson.
This is just the one little part where Public Works does jump in, as when we go to abandon the smaller spur to the south, we need to make sure we retain all of the easements there, because we've got some pretty hefty water lines and things in there. So we don't want them to be able to build on top of it or do anything like that.
Good point. Thanks, Blake.
Can I just jump in real quick, Blake? I assume that if it does get changed to Country Way, we'd want to put some signs up on Telegraph, that arrow that says landfill.
There's probably some sort of signs that we can put.
If there aren't
there's
already,
not.
there probably is
Is there
something.
some,
but-
yeah, is there one already? This points to landfill. Yeah, so yeah, we'd keep any of those street signs that we need to.
Thank you. Councilman Henderson?
Since we have some time, I'll tell you something funny I saw at the landfill today. So, I went there a couple times today, but anyway, there's a spot under the awnings, under the, that are covering the new scale house. And there was a place up there where they must be having some bird problems, birds nesting up in there.
Was it when you were leaving?
What's that?
Was it when you were leaving?
Yeah, when I was leaving, yeah. So
Well,
anyway, it looks like they bought a couple of those plastic owls to scare the birds away. So I go under there, and there's these 2 plastic owls up there with all the birds sitting right between the owls. So anyway, I should have taken a picture. Plastic owls aren't working, man.
So, me being Doge trying to save money at the end there, about putting up some type of netting, and it was really expensive, and they're like, well, maybe we'll just put some owls. I'm like, give it a shot. And then I asked them on last Thursday out there, and I said, so how are the owls working? They're like, yeah, they're not working too well. So it's like the ladder to get to the roof. The birds are sitting on there and dropping droppings, and it's the access for the back of the scale house. So we're gonna reevaluate that.
Add weight to the load.
Yeah, it definitely didn't turn, like I said, they thought they'd try and it didn't work out.
So
It's quite pricey.
I actually really appreciate Councilman Ivy bringing this forward. I do think the name Country Way is much more appealing than Landfill Road. Councilman Bellison's right. The Trust Lands is working with the developer out in Coral Canyon to bring forward a project. And I think to Councilman Coates' point as well, is the timing on that would, I think as they get moving forward and getting closer to that, I could see that being much more appealing to have the road renamed to Country Way from Landfill. And I know they're making progress that way.
So I wonder if we have 2 choices here. One would be to move forward now, or one would be to just move forward as soon as bringing forward applications. And that would give us,
Councilman Ivy, you've kind of brought this forward. What are your thoughts on this, hearing your peers' feedback?
Well, I think for me, if there's a financial reason that we wait, or a logistical reason to wait, then that always needs to be considered. But if it's got to be done now or later, then again, it just goes back to the appealing of the name. Does it appeal, or is that what our city, is that the road, that's all it is, Mayor. But, logistically, I realize that there's some things, but I do think that there's an advantage in having it named Country Way. It just sounds better for what our city is, I think.
And I would just maybe add, it's just the continuity of the full length of the road so that it doesn't change at what's now. And interestingly, I was up at the Utah Local Governments Trust on Monday and needed to get down to the Lehigh area. And I ran into Neil Schwindeman, the old manager out there, and had a great, I got a ride with Neil and had a great conversation, and he gave me a lot of feedback. I kind of bounced this off him, and he gave a little bit of the backstory on that alignment. Councilman Bellison, you probably remember, but there was some work done to get kind of this better alignment that is now, that kind of paves the way, and talked about some of that work. We talked about the landfill, but really the way that that's designed and that extra land back there and the way that they're building up and hiding the landfill, there's been some really good work done on that. So probably renaming this road on the right timeline is the right thing to do as far as progress goes.
If that's the intention to change it, I guess I'm having a hard time understanding as to why we should wait. I don't know. Do you feel like they won't take care of the road if we change the name?
It's our road, it's our responsibility. So I'm just,
Are they taking, you said something about an agreement that they're,
no, there's no, so let me back up. So there's the contract with Republic says they'll clean up the trash along Landfill Road. That's it. There's no agreement about maintenance of it or anything like that. It's our responsibility. I'm looking for grant funding to help us pave the road, because it's used by every trash truck in the county goes across that road. And so I'm trying to use that to help, I'm just stating that it's it's not only used by Washington City residents is all I'm trying to say.
we've had conversation with commissioners as well, and they've been positive towards that idea of helping us a little bit because of all the use by county, or the county in general. I don't know that the name makes a huge difference, but again, it allows them to say, well, that's not the landfill.
And I'm probably overthinking it, but it's just, I'm overthinking it.
Is that something that we could have legal counsel look at? I mean, obviously, covered loads and keeping the free of trash, even for just that section, is a big deal.
Well, but that's part of the contract that the district has with Republic. And then they have, so, and the details are basically that the Republic's required to clean up landfill road so many times a month.
The Republic is.
Republic is, but it's not, and so,
Is that something that Fay could look at, just to,
well, that's what's there. I don't think it's probably not, I just am saying that we probably just need to do an amendment to say, hey, by the way, they're changing the name, and it's probably something I need to bring up in the board meeting and let them know. And just kind of say, so that they're still required to do the same street cleanup as they were required to in the contract, is all I'm saying.
Councilman Ivy, would you be comfortable with Councilman Coates being able to take that back to the board a little bit and just exploring the contract, the trash cleanup along that section of landfill? And then, I mean, also maybe another conversation or two on any grant funding for the multi-use. I think where we all agree is that ultimately this should be Countryway, but maybe these two things ought to be vetted just a little bit before we pull that trigger to answer Councilwoman Casperson's question.
And that's what this discussion was for, is to see, to identify these concerns. And I again, don't want to be redundant, but it all comes down to just the name just isn't befitting of our city. But if there's logistical reasons to wait, then I'm fine with that, Mayor. If we can just bring it back when council reports on that, then I would be fine with it.
So we have a board meeting, I think it's next month. Yeah, 1st of June, second week of June, I think, is our next board meeting. And I was just about to go over the agenda next week with the manager, so I'll add that to the list to talk about. But you can give me till then to vet it out with that a little bit. Overall, I think we should change it long-term and if the developer comes in and is ready to go, we should not hold them to Landfill Road. We should change it because it does make sense, because I know Mayor's going to want to buy a house on Landfill Road, but no one else on this council.
Maybe one for my kids. Well, if I could get an affordable house for my, then I wouldn't worry too much about the name. Council, any additional feedback? I think this is good conversation. Appreciate everybody's insight. Thank you, Councilman Ivy, for bringing this forward. We have done this in 52 minutes. Council, we're done with all of the workshop items. I'll call for a motion to adjourn until our 6 p.m. regular meeting.
So made.
Motion by Councilman Belliston,
I'll second that, Mayor.
second by Councilman Ivy. All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
That is approved unanimously, and we'll be back in a little over an hour. Clock, we'll get started here. Thank you for coming out tonight. Today is Wednesday, May 14th. We are in the council chambers of City Hall for our regular council meeting. Our meetings are broadcast live via YouTube at washingtoncity.org/meetings. They're also archived, so if you want to watch them later, some people find that it works well if they're dealing with insomnia. They can, go to the agenda items that are the most tedious and find some relief. As has been our privilege for the last 3+ years, we start our meetings with the assistance of the Interfaith Council. And this evening, it's our pleasure to welcome Michael Cruz of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship.
Thank you, Mayor. The Unitarians, thank you all for your service to our community, and we bring you springtime greetings. So I want to recite to you a poem that I wrote called Spring Forward. In southern Utah, spring has sprung, a bounteous bouquet it has brung. Peach trees are pink, Bradford pears white, a festive, fragrant floral sight. The gopher plant with blooms of green, strangest flowers I've ever seen. Before all that is done and said, awaiting roses, robes of red. Snows are melting off mountains here. No more ski days, this is clear. As the sun climbs high in the sky, may daylight saving time soon die.
I was tempted to clap after that. Well done. Thank you. Thank you. Councilman Henderson, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please follow me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council, before I call for a motion to approve the agenda, I will ask for a little bit of mayoral liberty in rearranging the order on a few items to make the meeting flow just a little better and to accommodate some staff. I'll also make note that we do have need to go to closed session for purchase, exchange, or lease of property and pending or potential litigation. That said, I'll look to you for a motion to approve the agenda. I'll just announce them as we go. I think it's fine that way.
Fine by me, so made.
Motion by Councilman Coates, second by Councilman Belliston, second by Councilman Coates. All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved unanimously. We're going to start with item 7. This is an agreement. This is consideration to approve a lease agreement between Washington City and Southern Utah Association for Swim Club at the Washington City Community Center. Aquanics manager Serena Werner. Are you here? Come on forward. We've all been without a babysitter before. We know how that goes.
Right, so thank you so much. And I am just here to recommend we accept a 2-year lease with a 1-year extension for SUSA, Southern Utah Swim Association.
And very well prepared. Thank you for all of your work in the packet. Council, you've reviewed that. Is there any discussion on this particular item? Any questions for Serena?
Just quick. You're asking for a 1-year extension. Do we do that every year? Because they've been there for 16?
Yes,
So
every
what's-
year. We start off with a 2-year and then 1-year extension increase.
I have just a question, Mayor.
Councilman Ivey?
So are you seeing an increased need from our citizens where SUSA is displacing our citizens being able to use the facility?
We have not had any, no. Very simple.
Because that would be my priority, is that our citizens get that first and then
course.
after that.
Further discussion? I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion. We approve the lease agreement between Washington City and Southern Utah Swim Association for Swim Club at the Washington City Community Center.
Have a motion by Councilman Coates, a second by Councilman Belliston. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is approved unanimously. Thank you for all the work you do. We'll move on to the next item, which is announcements. Item 2A is a proclamation of National Public Works Week, May 18th through May 24th. A lot of those individuals who keep the lights on, the streets repaired, the water flowing, all of those modern conveniences that we enjoy that sometimes can go unnoticed and they don't get the gratitude. So it'll be my opportunity now to read a proclamation. Whereas one purpose of government is to provide for the general welfare of the people, clean water, safe roads, and a well-functioning sewer system are vital to a high quality of life, yet these services are often taken for granted. And whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to public health and well-being of the people of Washington City. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our community's transportation, water supply, water treatment, wastewater collection, stormwater, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the best interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Washington City to gain knowledge of and maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2025 marks the 65th annual Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association, be it now resolved, I, Mayor Cress Staley, do hereby designate the week of May 18th through the 24th of 2025 as National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens to join with the leadership of Washington City to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our health, safety, and high quality of life for all. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Washington City to be affixed, done in Washington City, Utah, this 14th day of May, 2025. Blake, you and any in your department, will you please stand? Our Public Works Director, any Public Works employees or those who have worked in this department? How about a round of applause for the hardworking individuals who make it happen? When you see those streets crews and the water guys and all of those out in their orange vests and boots and Wranglers, just take some time to think about what they do to make your life nice. And especially this next week, if you have a chance to tell them thank you, I know they would appreciate that. Item 7B, it was a great week, wasn't it? We have a new, for the year 2025, through the county fair and Cotton Days 2026, we have a new Washington City royalty. Brooke Hall, our amazing advisor, could you come forward? I'm happy to introduce, or you can. Let's tell us a little bit about the pageant the other night in Heritage Hall, and then will you just introduce us to the new royalty?
I'd love to, thank you. So we held our pageant at Heritage Hall on Saturday, May 3rd, and it was beautiful and so monumental for us to have it there for the first time ever now that it's been remodeled. It was lots of fun. We had our amazing contestants there, and I can't even express how talented each of them are. Like, I was moved to tears almost when I saw them perform for the first time. So I'm super looking forward to spending this year with them, and and for them to serve Washington City because each of them are more than qualified for the positions that they have. So I'd like to introduce our new Miss Washington City, Sienna Romney, and I'd actually like to give her the floor to introduce the rest of the princesses.
Hi, thank you, you're all too kind. I'm Sienna Romney, I am Miss Washington City for 2025 through 2026, and our first attendant is Lucky Nelson. Then we have our second attendant, Anna Carnavale. Then our Miss Spirit, Kinsey Williams.
Would it be too much to ask for a quick picture with you, Mayor?
We would love it, but I don't think we can let the royalty off that easy with just a picture. So I was there, and it was awesome. It was a packed house, and you looked wonderful, so poised, so confident, so brave. But I think what I was most impressed with was each of your talents. Would you just please, each of you, come up to the mic and just share a little bit about what your talent was and why you chose that? We'll start with you there, Sienna, and then we'll go to Lucky, Anna, and Kinsey.
All right, I chose to sing opera for my talent. I've been studying vocal lessons for years in musical theater, but in the past year I started studying under my voice teacher, Joyce Clements, who's an opera singer, and she introduced me to it. And I think that's where I'm starting to grow, really, and I wanted to share that with everybody.
Real quick before I let you sit down, was it in Italian or Latin? Or, I mean, I speak French, but I didn't recognize the words.
Yeah, it's Italian. It's from an opera by Pergolesi, if that means anything to anybody. But yeah, it's in Italian.
Wonderful. Well, you did wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, Lucky Nelson, come tell us about your talent.
So I've been taking piano since I was 4 years old. My mom grew up playing piano, and she majored in piano at the University of Utah, so I've always been really big into music. My teacher is Brandon Lee, and I played Minute Waltz by Chopin at pageant.
I mean, you kind of blew us all away with that grand piano and your fingers just going crazy on the keys. It was wonderful. Just tell us a little bit, what do you enjoy most about playing the piano, and do you see that as part of your future?
The thing I enjoy most about playing piano is the musicality of it. My mom has always said that I've kind of been naturally geared towards it. I've loved finding the flow and rhythm in the music, and in the future I hope to go into college for music, maybe major in songwriting or movie scoring.
I remember you saying that. Congratulations, well done. All right, Anna, and come on forward. And you had maybe the most creative and unique talent. Tell us a little bit about it. I wish I would have asked you to bring your prop to show us a little bit.
Yeah, so I did ventriloquy, which is like singing with your mouth closed. I brought my puppet Callie, and I've spent the last 2 years teaching myself how to do that, and I've competed with Dixie's Got Talent twice, and it's kind of just a fun, unique thing that I've learned to do.
How do you sing with your mouth closed? Because I was watching you just amazed. I'm like, I can't tell. She's not moving her lips or anything, and yet your puppet is hitting the notes.
Yeah, it's weird. It's kind of like learning another language. Like you learn how to make the sounds with your tongue, and so you like replace sounds. I don't know how to explain it and not make it sound crazy, but yeah.
Well, it was amazing. What do you enjoy about that?
My puppet kind of feels like its own person. And so when I talk to people and I'm like, yeah, we're going up on stage soon, and they're always like, who? And I'm like, oh, me and the puppet. So it's just like I have like this like built-in friend. I don't know how to describe it. It's fun though.
It was fun. Thank you so much.
you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, Kinsey Williams. Yours was awesome too. I remember having a daughter that did what your talent was, and so you are very good at it. Tell us about it.
Thank you. Well, I love trying new things. I have several different hobbies, and I picked up guitar 8 months ago, so I thought I would incorporate that into the pageant.
But you didn't just play,
Oh, I also sang.
and you also sang.
That's
I
very
mean,
good
come
as
on.
well.
Some of us can do neither. So, and how long have you been playing the guitar?
8 months.
8 months.
Yes. And I've been singing for 4? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it was awesome. You guys, each of you did so well. We're so proud of you. And yes, we're going to get a picture, but let's get a picture with the whole council, if that's okay.
I feel like I missed out. Congratulations.
I should have come and listened to the talents. Those sounded amazing.
I know, I feel like we need to get a preview here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Likewise, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Of course.
We'll see you all year.
So as our royalty is exiting, just, you'll see them doing service throughout the year at all of our city events. And we also really appreciate Brooke Hall, their advisor. She does a great job leading them out. Council, I have nothing else to announce between now and our next meeting. Is there anything else that comes to mind? Seeing nothing, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a declaration of abstentions and conflicts. Is there anything to declare or any abstentions? Seeing nothing, we'll move to the consent agenda. Item 4A is approval of minutes. This is consideration to approve the minutes from the City Council meeting of 4/23/25. Item 4B, the board audit report, to approve the board audit report from April 2025. And item 4C, the VACA report. Is there any clarifications? If not, I'll call for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mayor, I can make that motion to approve the consent agenda as outlined.
We have a motion on the table by Councilman Ivey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Casperson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved unanimously. We'll move to section 5 of the agenda, public hearings. Washington City operates on a fiscal year budget, which means as of July 1st, we will be on our 2026 budget. As part of that process, we are required to pass a tentative budget, hold a public hearing, and then approve the final budget. So for the budget, we hold the public hearing here in front of the council. So we did not receive any electronic public comment on the public hearings. So I'll move on to 5A. This is a public hearing to consider adopting the Washington City 2025-2026 fiscal year budget. Brian Brown, do you have anything? He's our finance director. Would you like to give anything to the council and public before I open and close the public hearing? You know, you're usually on the front row. You must have got back in a little bit late.
Yeah, I didn't want to take any.
Thanks for being here, Brian. Thanks for your excellent work on this budget. Give us the rundown for the council and those in attendance.
From the tentative budget, the only thing I wanted to point out is when we talked about the tentative budget in April, there was a request made for the baseball field. So the only change in this budget is $50,000 increase to the RAP tax for the baseball field design. And that's the only thing I wanted to bring up regarding on this sheet. You can actually see the budget that we're proposing is $139 million and plus that $50,000 increase. That's all that I wanted to point out.
So Brian, I'm assuming the stuff we talked about in the work session would be reduced from this?
Yeah, I'll have to go when
total
we
it.
do the adoption, I'll make those changes and do the
Okay.
same thing so you can see it broken out like this as well.
Okay, thank you.
Council, anything else to point out on the budget before I open the public hearing? At this time, I will open the public hearing on item 5A, which is the Washington City 2025-2026 fiscal year budget. Anyone that would like to speak to this budget is welcome to come forward now. The public hearing is open. Seeing nobody coming forward, I will close the public hearing. And we will make some minor adjustments based on the work session, and the council will consider approval of next fiscal year's budget at our May 28th meeting. Next item on the agenda is item 5B. This is a public hearing to consider adopting the Washington City 2025-2026 fiscal year compensation budget. We're required by the state to disclose this. Brian, do you have anything to add to this particular item before I open the public hearing? Okay, I will open the public hearing for item 5B. Anyone wishing to speak to the compensation of local government officers is welcome to come forward. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing on this item, and this will also be voted on May 28th. We'll move to the next section on the agenda, which is ordinances. Ordinances have public hearings at the Planning Commission level. If they're a land use ordinance, this originates with staff. Staff makes recommendations to Planning Commission. Planning Commission vets that. That's part of the process. The Planning Commission is an administrative board made up of residents throughout the community. They are appointed to serve, and they are what we like to refer to as our land use experts. They typically try to look very black and white on any applications to make sure that it's consistent with the code. I did ask for some liberty on this particular section to move agenda items around. So I am going to move to item 6B, and we'll circle back to 6A. Item 6B, this is consideration to approve an ordinance for zone change Z-25-10, adding the agritourism overlay zone located at 3400 South Washington Fields Road. And this particular item will be presented on by Community Development Assistant Director Eldon Gibb. Mr. Gibb, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, City Manager. Good to be here. The total area of this site is approximately 29.44 acres and located at 3400 South Washington Fields Road. The agritourism overlay zone is intended to provide agricultural related products and experiences to the public. It is intended to allow farmers the ability to generate supplementary income while still promoting the preservation of agricultural properties throughout the city, with the agricultural land being maintained in a manner that is consistent with the farm's main agricultural productive uses and historic conditions. That statement's taken right out of the code there that was just updated a couple months ago. Title 9, Chapter 12D, Section 4 in City Code provides a list of possible uses to be used in the overlay zone, and the applicant is asking for the following uses, which these locations have been identified in the exhibit here on the screen. Item number 1 is bakery cafe. Item number 2 is barn dances. Items number 3, 4, and 5 have been excluded from this application. Item number 6 is carriage house / wedding venue. Item number 7 is community garden. Item number 8 is community supported agriculture. Item number 9, conference / educational center. Item number 10 is corn maze. Item number 11, educational classes. Item number 12, farmers market, open air. Item number 13 is farmers market, indoor. Item number 14 is farm museum. Item number 15 is farm tours. Item number 16 is food concession stands. Item number 17 is gift shop. Item number 18 is haunted house. Item number 19 is hay rides. Item number 20 is health farm. Item 21 is miniature market. Item number 22 is nursery, referring to plants and gardening. Item number 3 is on-farm store / retail market. Item number 24 is petting zoo. Item 25 is play areas. Item 26 is recreational activities / agricultural family activities. Item 27 is restaurant. Item 28 is special events, which may be allowed, and the applicant is still willing and going to submit those special event permits that are not listed in this use table. Item 29 is U-Pick operations. Item number 30 is value-added product processing. That includes all the added uses to be overlaid onto the Ag 20 zone on the property. With these proposed uses, the applicant has identified the following hours of operation and employee help. Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., closed Sunday. The fall hours are identified as Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., Friday and Saturdays, 12 p.m. to 11 p.m., and closed Sunday. Wedding and special events ending at 11 p.m. 1 full-time employee year-round, and 8 to 12 part-time employees year-round. The seasonal fall employees are estimated at about 180 to 200 part-time employees for that heavy fall-time season. The applicant has identified the busiest time of year being the fall season, where they promote activities available for families to attend. The applicant has shown parking accommodations on the site plan and has a system in place to accommodate their patrons. The applicant provides parking attendants to direct and monitor traffic when large crowds are expected. To help with the traffic concern, the applicant is moving towards online sales where ticket quantities can be controlled by volume and shut down once they hit a certain capacity there. Staff is concerned with parking overflow and has added condition number 7 to address this concern. Staff is also concerned with the ingress-egress points servicing this property as they currently do not meet the access management plan, and staff has added condition number 8 to the staff report here, which I'll go over here in a minute. The Planning Commission reviewed this request on May 7th, 2025, and unanimously recommended approval of Z-25-10 for the agritourism business overlay zone being added to the existing A20 zoning designation. And that was based on the findings and conditions in the report. Those 2 conditions that were added to address those concerns. Condition number 7, patron parking shall be accommodated entirely on site so that the patrons do not park on the public right-of-way or surrounding properties. Patron traffic and or parking shall be monitored and enforced by the applicant so as to not burden the surrounding residents and traffic. And then lastly, condition number 8, egress points servicing this property will need to be addressed and placed in accordance with the access management plan prior to the widening of Washington Fields Road. A lot of information there. Again, it's just adding the overlay zone to the underlying A20 use. That concludes staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Council, any questions for staff on, or for Eldon specifically on this? Councilman Belston.
So Ellen, you mentioned busiest time of the year and the days and hours and all of that. That's what they've said that they want to use, but this doesn't restrict them to only those times, correct?
Correct. Yeah, currently that's what they predict. That could change with demand.
I just wanted to make sure that they weren't gonna have to come back through if they wanted to do a spring events and change and, start doing some of that, right? So.
Correct. Yeah, they're all of those uses that I listed, they're able to use those, and those conditions would monitor the parameters of parking and nuisance.
Any additional questions for Eldon on this particular item? Eldon, let me just tell you thank you for your work on this. I know that we had drafted an ordinance, an agritourism ordinance years ago, and recently modified it. And I know this has been a lot of work for you, so thank you for your work on it. Council, do you want to hear from the applicant, or do you want to have further discussion on this before or is it necessary to have a discussion with the applicant?
I'd like to talk to the applicant.
Me too.
At this time, I'll invite the applicant to come forward, and I expect every council member to ask very pressing questions.
Sherry, I appreciate everything you do. I've thought a lot about this, and I like to give you a hard time because it's just easy sometimes and you give us a hard time back, but I'm super excited. I love the farm. I live out there. I don't want to ever see it go away. I think it's important to our community. So I just want to tell you thank you, and I appreciate what you've done out there to keep the heritage of the fields, even though the fields are kind of going away. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for not beating me up too bad.
So Sherry, I'm just looking at your possible use list, and I'm wondering if on number 23, where you're talking about on-farm store and retail market, would that include beef and products that you make there at the farm?
Yeah, we already, with the silo, that's what we sell. So we sell our own beef and eggs, and we bring cheese in from the creamery. We try to keep local products in this. So basically it'd be the silo. So yes, that's our goal, is to stay a farm. So hopefully we can grow some cool new crops and
Well, I actually really
veggies.
appreciate that as well. For those of us that was raised here and we've seen what the farm was and what it is, it's encouraging to me to know that we can continue to make a living in a very traditional and important way to our community and to our people. So again, just my congratulations. I know how hard you and Mike work there. I drive by all the time, and I should stop and help Mike once in a while, but I just don't. So, but
Do they sell Coke at the silo?
Pepsi.
Pepsi, oh yeah, well, he'll keep driving then.
We'll bring you a Coke in. I just want to thank the council and the planning commission and Eldon and Thad, and Drew. This has been a long time, and, if we can go back in history, it's been a long time coming, and here we are. So thanks to all the good help, and we strive to make Washington City really proud of us, and I think that if, I've said this to Mayor several times, if you could sit there on an afternoon or a day, a Saturday or weekend, and just see the people that come in from all over the world, we're just shocked. And, we don't know where they're here. Well, we do know, we TikTok, but it's not our TikTok, it's other people sharing TikTok. We don't do TikTok. But anyway, it's such a treat to see and to get to tell a little bit about our story of the farm and of Washington City. And, you all know I'm proud of our city, and I, correct everybody if they say we're St. George, because we're Washington City. So thank you for everybody's help.
Well said. Thank you, Sherry. Council, this time I'll turn to you for further discussion and/or a motion on item 6B, which is consideration to approve an ordinance for zone change Z-25-10, adding the agritourism overlay zone located at 3400 South Washington Fields Road.
Mayor, I am very happy to make a motion to approve an ordinance for zone change Z-25-10, agritourism tourism overlay zone, 3400 South Washington Fields Road.
I have a motion by Councilman Ivy, a second by Councilman Belliston. We'll go roll call vote on this since it's an ordinance. We'll begin with Councilmember Belliston.
I'm very happy to vote aye.
Henderson?
Aye.
Coates? Ivy? Casperson?
Aye.
Item 6B is approved 5-0. Thank you. You don't have to stay unless you want to. Item 6C, before we get into 6C, I'll just mention on all of these ordinances that the public hearings for ordinances, while they occur at the planning commission level and not in front of the city council, I can tell you that the city council watches the planning commission meetings, many of them in person. If not, they watch them in preparation for these meetings, and they have listened to this is their second time typically hearing that, in addition to any and all public comment. That said, 6C is consideration to approve an ordinance for zone change Z-25-11 from R16 to R2, located at 272 West, 200 South. The applicant is it Tavin or Taven? Taven, Gibson, and Kyson Goodspeed. Community Development Assistant Director Eldon Gibb will present on this item as well.
The requested change is from the current zoning of R16 to a proposed R2 zoning designation, just downtown here. Request is for the purpose of developing the site with or into 2 units. They can bring 1 2-family dwelling unit or 2 single-family dwelling units on this property. I've heard that they're wanting to do 1 2-family dwelling unit on this property is their plan. This particular location has a general planned land use designation of medium density, which supports the R2, R16, and R18 zoning designation. The surrounding zoning to this parcel is R16 to the north, east, south, and west. The proposed zone change is in line with the general plan. However, it was identified and discussed during the Planning Commission meeting that the street frontage on this property is 2 feet shy of the required 70-foot width requirement, which requires council approval for that. Some relief there, 2 feet. Due to the street frontage not meeting the minimum 70-foot width requirement, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended denial of Z-25-11 for the zone change request from the R16 to the proposed R2. I confirmed with Tavin that he reached out to those 2 adjoining neighbors. There's no room to purchase land on either side. The homes have been set tight to their setbacks. We've kind of ruled that out, so that relief is kind of the last possibility here. That concludes staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Council, questions for Eldon on this item?
Well, then if this were approved, would it change, if it was reduced down to 68 feet, would it really have any effect on the house? As long as they just met the setbacks, it would be okay still, wouldn't it?
Correct, yes. House would be required to meet setbacks, which they're planning to do.
Utilities are not affected or anything like that? Okay, thank you.
So where's it, the 70-foot requirement comes from where?
It's in the zoning ordinance 9-8C-5. It spells out the lot width requirements. The R2 is designated at 70 feet. So everybody with an R2 needs to meet that minimum.
But if they wanted to go to, if they wanted to subdivide it, they could put 2 homes on it under an R16 and then just do a flag lot out of it or something along those lines, and it would be a non-issue, right?
Correct.
So this just saves the plat process or subdivision process.
They would need to meet those street requirements, which I haven't looked into. They may or may not meet that as well.
Drew?
Is this where there it goes? Probably not because of that width. You have to have a 26-foot pole as part of the flag. So it would take the 26 off. That would put the existing remaining lot under the minimum for an R16. So
Theoretically, if it was an R16, there's enough square footage to have 2 houses on it. You just couldn't.
yes, the square footage is all there. Everything falls in line except for that 70-foot.
So can I ask you another question? Short of the 2-foot rule, do they need to, under this application, does there need to be a separate variance for that? Or this application could just resolve that and be done?
Your approval would approve that. You're just not enforcing the 70-foot. You're accepting the 68-foot, and everything else would be just fine. They come in, they get their building permit for the twin home, and move on their merry way.
Council, if you would call it something like a permitted exception in a motion, if you're leaning that
Say the
direction.
term again, Thad. Permitted.
Permitted exception.
Okay.
The R16 requires 66 feet of street frontage with another 26, puts them at 92, so that would not be an option.
Can you say the size of the existing lot again?
The street frontage needs to meet.
No, the entirety of the lot. Do you remember?
It's 0.31 acres.
0.31. And I'll just make some comment here. Don't go too far, Eldon, but I remember being on the council when we actually initiated this R2 zoning, and while I understand that it's 2 feet short of that, 70-foot ideal, I think this clearly meets the intent of what the R2 zoning is. We want these, this is almost a third of an acre lot. It makes sense to infill in these areas within our downtown area, and so I actually really like the way that staff handled this, and I like the way the planning commission handled this, and I think it's entirely, obviously, it's your discretion, council. So further discussion on this particular item?
Mayor, the square footage is 13,506, so it would be over two full-size
Right.
homes, 6 lots. So
Right.
I was just gonna say, I appreciate the way the planning commission handled this. You know, their role really is to kind of look at the nuts and bolts of it, the rules, you know, and then our role is to kind of look and see, okay, does this kind of meet the spirit of the law? And I would say, Mayor, that this is a great place for a duplex type situation, and I don't mind that it's 2 feet shorter than 70. So.
Council, are we in agreement? Or are we ready for a motion? Councilman
I'm ready for a
Henderson,
motion,
Councilman
Mayor.
Dalston?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve an ordinance for zone change Z-25-11 with the permitted exception of a 68-foot frontage rather than 70-foot from R16 to R2 located 272 west and 200 south.
Okay, there's a motion on the table by Councilman Bellison to approve with a permitted exception. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Casperson. We'll go roll call on this, starting with Councilmember Henderson. Coates.
Aye.
Ivy.
Aye.
Casperson. Belliston.
Aye.
And that was a complete 180. That's approved 5-0. You can put 2 units on your lot. We're going to jump back up to the next item, which is 6A. This is consideration to approve an ordinance for zone change Z-25-08 from A20 to PUDR. Property is located at approximately 172 East Nelson Ranch Road. The applicant is American Land Consulting. Eldon, you're on 3 of 4 ordinances tonight. Present once again to the council on this particular item.
The applicant is requesting approval for a zone change of approximately 35.42 acres in size. The property is located at the northwest corner of Heritage, Fields Drive, and Nelson Ranch Road. The proposal is to change the zoning from A20 to open space and PUDR. The project includes 35.42 acres with approximately 23.99 being developed as PUDR and 11.43 remaining in open space. The original proposed development included 91 single-family lots ranging from 5 to 10,000 square feet, with a few other lots being larger. And I just want to note that during the Planning Commission meeting, the plan was revised to include 87 lots, which is here before us tonight. The revised plan is a 2.45 density unit per acre ratio when looking at all 35.42 acres, and a 3.62 density unit per acre ratio when looking at the 23.99 acres. The original proposal included 41,817 square feet of amenity, and the revised plan added an additional approximately 5,000 square feet of amenity for a total of 46,965 square feet, and includes a pavilion, 2 pickleball courts, open space area, and designated parking stalls. And that's at the southwest corner of the development there. The proposal also includes a master plan 10-foot asphalt trail running adjacent to the river there, sitting on top of the erosion control wall, which has also been brought into the development with this revised plan. A significant amount of those lots were reduced to accommodate more of that wash area. The surrounding zoning is A20 to the north, R110 to the east and south, and PUDR to the west. The general plan for this area is low density, which allows 3 to 4 units per acre and brings the R110 and R112 zoning designations. The project meets the 3 to 4 units per acre, and the proposed lots on Nelson Ranch Road and Heritage Fields Drive, which are along the perimeter there, do provide a taper effect into the surrounding development, with the smaller lots being internal to the subdivision. And this was done in an effort to blend the existing developments that surround it, kind of tie everything together and mesh it in as best they could. The applicant is proposing the following setback plan. Front setback is 20 feet, rear setbacks are 10 feet. The side setback is a minimum of 5 feet with a total aggregate of 15 feet on the lot. So if they went 5 feet on one side, they'd be forced to go 10 feet on the other. They could go 7.5 feet on one side or 7.5 feet on the other for a total of 15 feet. The Planning Commission reviewed this request on April 16th and again on May 7th and recommended approval with a vote of 4-1 of Z-25-08 for the proposed zone change from the current A20 to the proposed open space and PUDR single-family zoning designation, with the findings and conditions stated in staff report. That concludes staff report. Again, a lot of information there. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Eldon. Appreciate the staff report. Council, before I turn to you, I'll just repeat a couple of things and then I'll mention something else. I want to repeat that the public hearing did occur at the Planning Commission. And I'll also just make note that for this particular item, well, before I say that, I'll make note too that the council was either in attendance or watched all of the items, in particular this item. So they're aware of the public comment that has been made. And here's what I'll add is that we acknowledge the dozens and dozens of emails and electronic comment that was sent to each of us. We also acknowledge and recognize all of the points that were brought up during the public hearing that was held at both Planning Commission meetings. So I just want to say thank you for reaching out and expressing your points and your views as neighbors, as part of that community. And I want to just reassure you that while you will not have an opportunity to speak, there is not a public hearing this evening. I want to reassure you that your emails have been read and your voices have been heard. That said, Council, I'll turn to you for questions for staff before I invite the applicant to come forward as necessary.
So I just have a clarifying question for Eldon. You stated a 20-foot setback, but in the application it says for the front, but it says 20 foot to a garage with an option to go as close as 10 feet for the home portion. Is that clear?
Great catch there. Yeah, they are at, I forgot to mention that, they are asking for a relief there to go to 10 foot for the building, so that living could be pushed up to 10 foot, but yet the garage would meet that 20-foot setback requirement.
Thank you for the.
Can I ask
Is it? No, you first.
Go ahead, Henderson.
question on that, Eldon? So the ones that are on Nelson Ranch Road, would that include those? Would they have the 10-foot option setback on the front?
Correct, yes, this setbacks would apply to all of these
All of
87
them?
lots.
Okay.
We'll say this, there are a couple projects in town that do have a similar setback where it's 20 to the garage and 10 to living, and, done well, it can be kind of cool. Sienna Canyon is one that I've pointed to several times. If you ever get a chance to go in there, it's a cool little subdivision, and they've used that depth to create some variety, especially when they have small lots like this, so.
And those setbacks were revised. Originally, they pitched a 5 and 5 on both sides. They came back and satisfied the Planning Commission recommendation to widen that. So that was something they gave on their end.
Further questions for staff on this particular item, on staff report or on the packet?
Yeah, that there's been I watched both of the Planning Commission meetings, And there was some question as to what would be allowed, you know, if they were just to do straight zoning versus what they're proposing now. Can you kind of just speak to that, about what's allowed for that, and then, you know, for the lots that are allowed for the PUD?
Yes, straight zoning, when you try to compare the two, straight zoning would apply a zone designation to every last square inch within the boundary of the property. And the question of how many lots fits on there is a function of where the roadways are located and how you draw lots into the nooks and corners of that shape of land. When staff administers zone designations, it's very common that the land shapes look kind of like this one, where there's corners and bends and places that aren't all just linear and don't all lean towards just, you know, similarly sized rectangular shaped lots. And so staff administers that in a way that would allow, you'll notice on this map, there's several lots that are quite a bit larger than R110. The administration of that also allows for there to be some lots that are by measurement a little bit smaller than an R110. And the way that staff looks at it is they look at the whole project, they do a calculation and try and say, you know, if you're able to draw perfect linear lines in this shape, how many lots would divide over the total area of that? And so the calculation and comparison of how many lots would fit into straight zoning versus a PUD is difficult because they're different zoning designations, but at the end of the day, staff is looking at the piece of land. The applicants had people try and draw the best layout that they can, acknowledging that those layouts they have to connect roads and things like that per city code. And so some of the roads are in places because that's what our city council has said is in the best interest of the citizens, that roads connect at different places, right? And so there's just no way to say straight zoning would be 40 and PUD would be 50. There's a bit of art in drawing these lots and where you draw the lines. And with the interpretation by staff, if a development was presented that mostly had lots of R110 or larger sizes, but had a few that were smaller because they were fitting in corners and things, if the average across the board was still an R110, staff would likely recommend approval for that.
Council, if I may add one comment. In your packet, there's two additional exhibits there. We have the original plan, which is labeled original plan, and then an option 2 plan. The Planning Commission, in their motion, their preferred pick was option 2. As they discussed that, they removed the road connecting over to 20 East, as there was some above ground utilities that were going to be problematic.
They didn't want that, the plan?
Who didn't? The
I'm
applicant.
just saying, this is the one I'm looking at that.
The Planning Commission recommended option 2 as their preferred plan. Correct.
There were some reasons behind their recommendations. I think the two that I recall most, they liked not having an egress road near the amenity where children would play. Public Works had expressed that there's substantial and significant problems with the right-of-way location. There's just a whole flurry of other agency easements within that right-of-way, and they're not sure that roadway could actually physically be connected there.
Still haven't found out why. If everyone keeps saying that, but every time I look at it, maybe I'm just misunderstanding. I don't understand what is causing, say we can't do it, because the large power poles to the north.
I'll just say what John said. He mentioned the power easement, the underground regional water easement, and the largest thing he mentioned was a blower box that's elevated above the ground right in the middle of the road that he didn't feel like the city would have the ability to relocate to put a road there. Some form of a breather / access point to the regional water line.
You want me to ask John?
And so my understanding is that was located exactly where that.
Last night didn't see anything, but maybe I'm missing it. So I don't know.
John Hankey is who shared that, and so we could probably get a better answer for him. Is he here, Mayor?
We're making eye contact right now, although I think he was trying to hide just a little bit from me. I knew I'd get you up here today, John. And I tried in the last meeting and you dodged me there, but not this
That's
meeting.
got me confused by a blower and everything else too, so.
Just state your name again and for the record and
John Hinkie, New Development Manager for Public Works. So at that intersection, there's a 4-inch airback that's about 4.5 foot up out of the ground. That is tied to the Conservation District line there. It'd be right in, you can see it there, right next to the curb line by that 33 dimension and stuff, so.
Slide it over to kick it just outside of the curb and gutter?
We would need to move the curb and gutter to the east, and then we would end up with a offset intersection there, which doesn't really meet our design standards, and as well as the bend in the road stuff doesn't meet our design standards for angle and everything either. So based upon what we have on provided here and stuff, it's highly unlikely that this could be in there, but again,
I see it as a dead end road, right? Like this is we're not extending it past this neighborhood. I just feel like we could make it work. I'm not saying move the air vac because I saw that, but
Yeah.
I didn't see it on this map until we blew it up right there to see that because it just says, WA.
Yeah.
So, I'm just sitting here going, it doesn't seem too hard to just wrap that curb and maybe make that street a little to the east. I mean, it literally looks like 2-3 feet and make it fit, but
be a bit more than that to get it moved over, because we've got to move over the curb, gutter, sidewalk, everything, get around that.
we could bend the sidewalk around it and make a little planter if we had to, just real quick and get it back. I'm just saying that there's things that we can do. I just don't like the mid-block option. I didn't like
The
it.
mid-block is gonna be there no matter what, because of our standards for an 800-foot distance between
It's not.
intersections.
It's not shown on this exhibit.
I know, yeah, that's why we have the revised one with it in there.
But why do we need a mid-block at 800? I understand we have it, but that just.
We have in our standards book, there's a requirement that we cannot go more than 800 foot from the intersection, so that's why we have that mid-block one in there.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that water line needs to be relocated anyway, right?
Mhm.
So when you relocate it, wouldn't you relocate the air vac?
We wouldn't be vacating, we can't vacate somebody else's easement, it's not our easement. And that airback is there for the Conservation District's line.
It's not, yeah, they're not relocating the regional water line.
No.
That's massive. Yeah, it's a city line that might, regional water line is,
Yeah, there's
not.
there's a City St. George line that comes through there and a Conservation District line that comes through there.
Maybe I'm missing which line's which then.
Yeah, there's just about every utility in the county comes into that intersection, so.
so the regional water line is the 64-inch line of culinary water from the treatment plant at Quail that essentially runs cross-county to Gunlock. And so it's the main feeder line of all culinary water.
Yeah, you can see on the map there, there's the two water lines on the north side of the street. That's the St. George and the Conservation District one. We have ours there on the south side of the line, south side of the road, so.
Okay, so the one that needs to be relocated is the one that goes through the lots up on the 45, right?
Right, that's the one that would be relocated, that they'd already talked with City of St. George and relocating that one, come down Heritage.
Is there any places in Earth that call an air vac a blower?
No, there's nowhere called a blower.
Does it blow air by chance?
Yes, legal term, yes.
thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Don't go too far. Council, further questions for staff? If not, I'll invite the applicant forward. I'll invite the applicant forward if you'll just state your name for the record.
Adam Allen with American Consulting and Engineering. How are you?
Hi, Adam. Thanks for being here tonight.
Absolutely.
Anything you'd like to respond to before I open it up for questions by the council?
We appreciate being here. We appreciate the process we went through with the Planning Commission. I know that the owners and the developers are really trying to find a solution for missing middle. We want to have people be able to afford and to purchase these lots, which thus the reason why we did the feathering is we went bigger lots. So that way as people were looking at it from the outside, it didn't, it didn't appear to be any different from what they're looking at. And that was originally the reason why we only had the 2 entrances. We felt like that might be, people would feel less intrusive as well. So, but we feel like we've come up with, between what we had and what Planning Commission had us work through, it's a really good plan, we feel. And so we appreciate your guys' consideration.
Council, questions for Mr. Allen?
I have a couple questions on the floodplain.
Yep.
So I have concerns, and I know from the original, you've pulled back a lot from where it was before. I still have concerns with the floodplain on lot 180. You say you're gonna do a Lomar F for that lot. What's your plans for the other lots? It doesn't particular say on that. And then you get down to lot 87, you said you're gonna do a Lomar F on that one as well.
Yeah, we're more than likely going to have to do a Lomar F to prove that they're not in the floodplain. That way they don't have to have flood insurance on those houses.
Yeah, but you're saying that they're not in the floodplain? Because FEMA says they are right now. What are you doing to elevate them out?
What's that?
What is your plan to show how you're elevating them out?
So as of right now, so with our wall that we build along there, he's got it called out. Jared Bates with Rosenberg called out that I think we had to be at least 1 or 2 feet above BFE, right, base flood elevation, which we have mapped out. FEMA's mapped out really well through there. So we'll have to go, once we do this, we'll go through and show them that those are no longer in the floodplain.
Okay, but you're not gonna do a Lomar, you're just gonna do a Lomar F with, but it also states that there's no living structures built beyond this line.
As of right now, if it doesn't get pulled out, we don't want them building back there. That was staff's concern, was having them build anything back there. We obviously don't want any living structures built back there. We don't want to have any issues with that if something did come.
I don't want any of it. So I've been down there in the floods, and I've sandbagged in the floods because these subdivisions get so close to these floodplain. I just have concern with it being in there until it's not. Like, that lot's a massive lot. I know you're trying to maximize what you're doing there. I have super concern that if it's in the FEMA floodplain and then we're approving it, saying that they can build it without a structure. I know there's a process to go through that.
Yeah, I mean, if they wanted to build anything back in there, they'd have to get a floodplain development permit.
I understand that, but try to tell that to the common public. They don't know that. That's my concern. Because then they come to us and they complain, and you guys know I do this for a living, so I know all these rules. So I'm very uncomfortable with approving something on a plan like this that shows the floodplain there and the lot going into it. Now, the ones with the little fringe, that doesn't bother me as much because it's just the backyard lot, but where it takes the whole lot, we already have the problem with the subdivision to the north. Same thing, they own clear to the back, and so that's my one concern. I also am concerned why we're building detention ponds in the Virgin River. I just don't understand it. I've never seen a detention pond built in the Virgin River floodplain.
We're working with staff on whether or not we can, our recommendation is that we don't put a detention pond in there because we want to get the water out as soon as possible, and all we'd be dealing with is LID, so.
But you still got to detain your water. So I understand your argument because I've tried to argue it and lost multiple times on that, on
Councilman
places.
Coates has never lost an argument.
I've lost an argument many times. I'm just saying.
We're not talking about our arguments.
Oh.
But
So, all I'm saying is that never seen along the Virgin River. Now, I've seen other places that don't have continuous flow, but the problem with these developments when they flood is it's not the water trying to get out of the Virgin River because we can armor it and keep it in. It's getting the water from the streets out to the Virgin River. River Shadows is a perfect example. I had to sandbag around my buddy's house because the street filled up with water because we couldn't get the water out. There's not enough fall. That's my concern, is the detention pond doesn't work if it's in the middle of the flood.
It'll be 2 feet above flood elevation.
The flow line of the pipe will be 2 feet above flow line
No, the flow line
elevation.
of the pipe won't be. No, the
Exactly,
flow lines,
so-
the flow lines of the pipes that are already in the road are not above.
I know, and it'll
That
back up
elevation.
and then the street doesn't drain. That's my concern. So those are my concerns, and then I don't know why we're putting structures in the floodplain with pickleball and pavilion. I think the concern I have is, and I know that was part of the code, right, to have it. I think a grass area is plenty. I believe in putting structures in the floodplain to cause more damage potentially downstream.
Okay,
My opinion.
okay, appreciate it.
Mayor, if I might be able, just a point of clarification on tonight's meeting. This is a zone change, an application to change a zone. And the city does not recognize a zone change, even if approved, as authorizing construction of anything. It's just it would vest that zone designation. The applicant would still need to submit additional permit applications and documents before they'd have authority to build.
Thank you, Thad. Council, additional questions for the applicant?
One question I have, Mayor, would it be possible to keep a 20-foot setback on the exterior lots, the ones on Nelson Ranch Road and what's the other road there?
Yes, absolutely. We actually, we didn't think about that. I honestly didn't even dawn on me thinking about that until you brought that up. Yeah, it would apply to those, and no, we're completely fine with that.
Okay.
Being the full 20-foot setback.
Because that would kind of
Yeah.
keep the neighborhood
That mimics what we're
harmonious.
doing, yeah. So,
Mayor, if I could just maybe
Please.
address some of the things I read in the emails. I appreciate all the emails, probably had 100 of them, and some of them were, a lot of them were very respectful, very well thought out. Appreciate those. Some of them were a little less than respectful, and that's okay, right? Just for future, though, the ones that are less than respectful don't really help, that much. So in the future, I would keep them respectful. That would just be my bit of advice. I've kind of gone back and forth on this. A lot of good arguments both ways. And one thing I tried to do is go look at some, a lot of people said, well, if it was in your neighborhood, you would never vote for 5,000 square foot lots, right? A lot of emails said that. That's a good argument. That's fair. And so I thought to myself, is there anywhere in my neighborhood that has 5,000 square foot lots? So I live in a neighborhood that's R120, half acre lots. And the neighborhood right next to us has small lots. And so I just got curious. I looked on the MLS to see what the lot sizes were. And in that subdivision, which is Monteverde, one of the nicer subdivisions, I think, in all of Washington, and smaller houses, smaller lots. And the lots are 4,600 to 5,600 square feet, so very similar to this. And I've lived there for 25 years. I've never given it a second thought about how small the lots were. I didn't know they were that small. But it's a nice subdivision. I don't mind living right next to lots that are that small. So for me, I like the plan. I like the smaller lots. I think that's where we're headed as a community for affordable housing. I want my kids and grandkids to be able to afford a house in Washington City, in Washington County. The days of all of the lots being R110 or R120, I think are over, because the vast majority of the people in the community can't afford those anymore. And so I think the developers did a pretty good job feathering. I think it could be a little better with the 20-foot setbacks on the exteriors. I also wouldn't mind seeing a little bigger lots on the exteriors. But anyway.
This is not a public hearing, ma'am. You're not allowed to speak, but you're allowed to be in attendance. Thank you. You're not allowed to speak. Lieutenant.
Anyway, Mayor, those
Councilman.
are some of my thoughts, and I understand what you're saying. You don't want smaller lots around your neighborhood. I understand the traffic thing. I suspect that if traffic gets a little heavier over there, you probably get a traffic light at a couple of those intersections. I understand that. I have a son that lives in that neighborhood, and I understand that it's hard to turn left, right? And so, but anyway, those are my thoughts, Mayor. I understand, I appreciate the emails, but this is a good design, and to be honest, this is where we're headed. We're gonna have these smaller lots because that's just reality, that's life now, and that's the economic reality of what our community is facing right now. So I like the design with a couple of tweaks around the edges, so.
Thank you, Councilman Henderson. Councilman Belliston?
Just because I don't have them in front of me. General plan low density, what's the numbers on that? It's 3 to 4, isn't it? 3 to 5?
4.
3 to 4, finish the sentence, units
No,
per acre.
it's just, yeah, 3, oh, sorry. Yeah, 3 to 4 dwelling units per acre.
So taking the 35 acres out and just sticking with the 24 acres that they're looking at developing, and if it were a 10,000 square foot lot, theoretically, if you put 10,000 square foot lots and only 10,000 square foot lots on there, you come out with 104 units. If you look at 3 to 4 units based on the general plan, we're at just shy of 4. So I think it's consistent with the general plan as far as the density. I agree with a lot of the comments that people said, well, maybe you put the higher density up against the main roads. The challenge is the land that has been coming in for developments has all been for McMansions, right? And I mean, I just see that we had this conversation yesterday. I'm just having a hard time with the divide that a lot of the development's been going. I appreciate in this one that it's not townhomes, it's single family lots. They might be smaller, but they're single family lots and single family homes, because I know that I wouldn't want the attached product, but I've never had a townhome, but I went from an apartment to 1,100 square feet to 2,000 square feet, and I worked my way up and I had that opportunity, and this project gives a fair amount of opportunity. Now, the flood issues that have been brought up are real. I think even though it was mentioned a minute ago that, they wouldn't have to get flood insurance, anybody that doesn't get flood insurance in that neighborhood or any neighborhood down there is crazy. That's just where this is.
Thank you, Councilman Belliston. Councilman Coates?
No, I was gonna state, I like the idea of the 20-foot setbacks along the roads that are existing, just to keep consistent with the neighborhood. But I posed the question the other day of, so what's the difference between a 10,000 square foot lot and an 8,000 square foot lot? And I don't know if I came across, and I'm talking the roads along the existing, to keep the neighborhood harmonious, how it looks. And I don't know if I had a good answer, but I think the home sizes would be similar, just be less yard, is how I kind of looked at it. But I don't know if that's true or not. I just kind of was thinking that potentially you'd have the same size of home and just less space between them. So I just
more two-story, but then
yeah, I agree.
Single level.
So and I mean, I don't know. I'd love to hear what the developer thinks of making those 10,000 along those edges. I don't know what that would do to the site plan.
Adam, make a note of that, and when the next time we're up. Any comments from Councilwoman Casperson, Councilman Ivy?
Well, I just want to appreciate everyone's emails and the involvement with the community. I really feel like it's important to have our community be involved, and I can understand some of their concerns with, and I feel like on every neighborhood, traffic, especially if you have kids, traffic and cars on your streets is always a concern, with our kids' safety and everything. And so I feel like there's been brought up a lot of valid concerns. And I've wanted to spend, time trying to figure out, just let Council Belliston, and then, if Thad was able to share what would actually be allowed if we were to do straight zoning versus what has been proposed here. And I do feel like there can be a little bit of adjustments that were mentioned. I feel like it would be nice, like they had previously said, to make those lots a little bit bigger on the exterior, and then even maybe match it, on that interior as well. but I don't know how many of you have looked at the cost of land and how to go through that process, but it is kind of discouraging when you start looking at the cost of land. And so you have all these people in our community who are, you know, great contributors and who make a big difference here, but they can't even afford to live here. And I've seen a lot of communities in our, you know, in here in neighborhoods that are smaller lots, but they're really nice homes and neighborhoods. And so just because there's smaller lots, I don't think that necessarily means that it's gonna not be a nice neighborhood. And so I like the idea of making the setbacks, you know, on the exterior to match what we have with our current zoning, and then maybe making the lots bigger. But I mean, if you went with straight zoning, you'd be getting a very similar amount of homes there. And you wouldn't be able to get some of the other amenities. And we wouldn't be able to make as much changes because with straight zoning, we don't have that flexibility as a council.
Thank you for your comments, Councilwoman Casperson. Councilman Ivey, anything to add? If not, I can invite the applicant back forward.
No, again, I appreciate the give and take tonight and all the outreach from our community. And I've got to admit that there's no one in our city that's pushed back harder against increased densities than I have. But the one thing I've learned being on city council is that this is part of the growing pains that our community and other communities goes through. I don't, you know, it used to be that we had a lot of property around, we had a lot of farm property that went to the next generation, and that's kind of wrapping up. And so looking for ways to house the next generation, I think, is important. And I'm not saying that this is the answer, but I will tell you that there is extensive conversation at the state level that from the legislature and from recent bills that have been passed, basically telling city councils that if you're not willing to make hard decisions, we'll preempt you and we'll make the decisions, take away our ability to even assess our own zonings and things like that. But there's things about this project that I like. There's things that are concerning, but the one thing that probably overrides my thoughts, Mayor, is that it's one of the last fields, you know, and I think that has an impact as well, where a lot of us grew up here. We know what the fields were like. We know what life was like. And with this being one of the last fields, that might have an impact too. But we cannot disregard or lessen our need and our requirement legally to allow people to use their property. That's based in, you know, doctrine that even precedes our country. So what's hard about it is finding what that right is for the developer to be able to use their land and what the best fit is for our community. I see that there's a need for this project. It's my hope that we can continue as the council directs, that we find those little tweaks that are important, but I do think it's important that we consider it.
Thank you, Councilman Ivey. Adam, will you respond to the comments by council? Any questions you heard?
Hi, Adam Allen again. I don't remember if I have to restate my name. So I just wanted to explain a little bit on the eights on the outside. I went with that based on my conversations I have with several other builders. Basically, they are building the same houses, right? Your eights and your tens are the same houses, but it puts them in a better affordability range. It's quite a bit cheaper on an eight, but it's still, the houses are the same on eights and tens. They build the same houses. So that was why we went to eights. It made the feather and then started going in, so.
Would you talk about the 20-foot setback around the perimeter and lot sizes around the perimeter?
Yeah, so I was addressing the eights around the perimeter. That was what I was talking about. And then the lot setback, like I said, we're happy to go with the setbacks for 8,000 square foot lots, or, you know, the 20-foot back. We want it to feel a lot like what it is, like the neighborhoods around it, sorry.
I think you're gonna have some challenges on that mid-block option with lot one, because you're gonna have a setback on the front and a setback down the side for those overhead power lines. I would think you might wanna take lots 1 through 5, assuming this gets approved, and combine those into 4 lots.
Yeah.
Or something, because you're gonna have some challenges on those lots, just given the dimensions
connections. Good call.
I mean, you know, quite frankly, if we went to 10,000 square foot lot, or said perimeter ought to be 10,000 square foot lots, I mean, you're losing 2, maybe 3 lots total. And to me, that's 2 or 3 families that don't have an opportunity. So is it really, I mean, I would just leave them personally.
Any additional questions for the applicant?
Could you make the, like on 63, 64, you know, that row of houses, could you make those a little bit bigger? You know, make them around the 8s?
You're saying the lots behind, like the lots behind 20, those lots right there? You know, we feel like our opinion is we're blending it into the smaller lots, right? The guys with the 8s, you know, the 6s are then looking at the little bit smaller, 10s are looking at 8s, 8s are, you know, 6s and that. So, I mean, our preference would be to leave it like this, make it, we feel like we can make it be really nice, and the homes in there can be really nice.
Do you know what across the street is like? I don't know if you know the square feet of the.
I don't off the top of my head which one specifically across the street or what sizes.
Drew, can you help on Councilwoman Casperson's question? Probably the lots to the east there of Heritage Fields Drive, on Heritage Fields Drive on the east side of the road. Probably.
While he's looking that up, Adam, I don't see that they connected the trail to the subdivision anywhere.
Yeah, it's not connected anywhere right now, but apparently there is a master plan trail to go along all that riprap back there. And I know that the city's in the process of getting funding for some more riprap, and I think that they're gonna try to.
No, I'm talking from your subdivision. Where's your connection?
I don't have one yet. It's coming behind the other subdivisions one day.
No, I'm talking from your street and your park. Why aren't you
Oh.
connecting it with at least a sidewalk or something?
Yeah, we'll connect it in there, sorry, yeah, we'll get
Because
it
there's no
connected.
connection for even these residents. You'd want to do something off close to 20th East or something so that the residents
Yeah,
can get.
we're gonna try to, we'll connect it through the park area right there into the trail system from our neighborhood, sorry.
Yeah, sorry,
I misunderstood what you were saying.
Yeah, no, I know there's not a connection north-south yet. Hopefully someday.
Okay, Councilwoman, I just pulled up this, I'm gonna come here to 319 East, because it's the smallest, or roughly looks apparently. That lot is 12,200, this one right. Let me try to get that guy right there. So all the rest of these are a little bit bigger, 12.2 or higher. I think Mr. Smith says his is 14, and that's down here, which is over 14,000 square feet. So that's probably the biggest. Him and his neighbor are probably the biggest ones on that street at 14. So it's ranging between 12 and 14 on everything that abuts on that on Heritage Fields Drive. Does that help you?
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Council, I'll turn to you for further discussion and or a motion on this particular item.
I'm ready to make a motion, Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilman Henderson.
To make a motion that we approve an ordinance for zone change Z-25-08 from A20 to PUDR located at approximately 172 East Nilsson Ranch Road, with the stipulation that all of the exterior lots have a 20-foot setback.
And then Councilman Henderson, can you just verify the option in your motion, just for clarity? Is it the option 2 alignment?
Is that what we're doing, option 2?
It was with the mid-block.
That's the one. So,
Mayor, can you just state that it's a front yard setback at 20?
yard setback.
So I'm not trying to be nitpicky, I just make
Okay.
sure that's stated that way, thank
Can
you.
you state the lots?
Anything along Nelson Ranch Road and anything along Heritage Fields Drive.
Has a 20-foot front yard.
setback.
I'd like to second that, but can I make a suggestion to your motion? That the applicant can, without having to come back, redesign lots 1 through 5 to get rid of that, that easement issue down for the overhead power lines.
Sure. Can redesign lots 1 through 5, so.
Okay, you've heard the
Staff.
motion in its entirety. Councilman Bellison, do you have a second?
I just made that second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Henderson, have a second
I'd like
by
to-
Councilman Belliston.
I'd like to make a substitute motion, Mayor.
We have a call to make a substitute motion before there's been a vote.
I'd like to make a motion that we table the item until the floodplain issues are resolved.
I have a motion to table the item until the floodplain issues are resolved.
So they have to help me with this. You have a motion and a second. Do you have to have a vote before, so if you
That's
do a
right.
substitute, it has to be before the second.
I did it wrong after all this.
Just want to make sure we're properly done. Sorry.
Okay, so I do have a motion and a second on the table. That's going to require a vote. We'll go roll call voting, beginning with council member. This is a motion to approve with conditions, which is option 2. We'll go roll call, beginning with council member Coates,
Nay.
Ivy,
Aye.
Casperson,
Nay.
Belliston, Henderson.
Aye.
The item 6A zone change request is approved with a split vote, 3-2 for approval with conditions. We'll move along to the next item, which is 6D. This is consideration to approve an ordinance for zone change Z-25-13 to update the project name from Stuckey Farms to Alea, assign building heights within the mixed use and hospitality areas, and revise pod numbers to align with the current site plan. The applicant is Preserve at Stuckey Farms Holding Company. Eldon Gibb, if you're still in the house, I'll invite you at your leisure to come forward and present. You know, I have to just, you're gonna do a great job, but Paul, you gotta admit that was funny in the workshop meeting earlier when it was 2 walkers and you're not related. I mean, I didn't even catch that till I invited you guys up, and anyway. Eldon, take it away.
I wouldn't leave you high and dry like that, Mayor. Council, good to be back here. The applicant is requesting approval to amend the Stuckey Farms PCD and assign building height to the mixed use and hospitality areas. Those 2 areas were added to the updated site plan that was approved by council a few weeks ago. So we need to identify those heights in those areas. The proposal includes the following 3 items: updating the name from Stuckey Farms to Alea, assigning building height to the mixed use and hospitality areas, and those heights include, or are as stated as such, 60 feet for the condotel and hotel, 50 feet for commercial and professional office, and 40 feet for the residential area. And on that residential area, the Planning Commission recommends that at 35 feet. The Planning Commission also recommended Pod 12B reduced from the proposed 60 feet. And then lastly, the 3rd item is updating the pod numbers in the zoning comparison chart to match the updated site plan. Staff has no concerns with the zone change as outlined. And the Planning Commission reviewed this request on March 7th, 2025, and recommended approval with a 4-to-1 vote of Z-25-13 for the zone change request, amending the name from Stuckey Farms to Alea, assigning building heights to the mixed use and hospitality area, with the change from the residential height in the mixed use and hospitality zone to 35 feet, and pod 12B be reduced from the proposed 60 feet, along with adding or updating the pod numbers to match the site plan. That concludes staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
So this is just kind of some house cleaning, it looks like. Basic stuff.
Correct, yes, and assigning that building heights there.
And me what our current code says for just standard zoning on heights for buildings and uses.
So we allow in professional office in the PUD up to 42 feet. The downtown mixed allow a permitted height of 50 feet. And maybe I'll just remind of some current buildings on the corner of Sandia and Merrill. That office, 3-story office building, they came in for a height waiver. That was built out at 56 feet. The hotel that's being built just west of Green Springs Golf Course, they asked for a height waiver. That was 60 feet. And then the hotel off of exit 13 next to the existing one, which has not been built, height waiver was approved for 65 feet for that hotel. So the building heights that they're asking for are in line with what we've approved in the past.
Thanks, Eldon.
Additional questions for staff? Council, do you want to hear from the applicant?
So
Brandy, do you have something to add?
I actually do have something for Eldon real quick. Sorry, it just kind of popped into my head. This application or this request would say, hey, these zones are automatically approved up to 60 foot, no issues whatsoever. Other than that, they could still bring something in on a case-by-case basis and ask. Right?
That's correct.
We have a height variance in our ordinance that they could do that.
Correct. So the height variance ordinance does not apply only to non-PUD or PCD. So you can always bring a height variance. The reason why these didn't come with the site plan process previously is I was very careful to distinguish the site plan process from a zone change. So these are zone change because of the plan development name and setbacks and things or natures of those. So these are here tonight as a zone change, and you are correct. They could bring a height anytime.
It's so onerous to say, hey, leave the heights what is standard within the city, and you want to bring them in one by one, case by case, you can do so.
And you could approve this tonight, and then they could show up and say, hey, we need 65 feet, so we're asking you for a height variance.
I know, and they could come in and bring something in at 9 feet and say, tough luck, you got it because you approved it here, and even if we don't like it.
Thanks, Eldon. Brandy, I'll invite the applicant's representative to come forward and speak to the council on this item.
Good evening, Council. Brandy Walker with Civil Science, representing the applicant. Keep it short and sweet. We just really quickly wanted to clarify and touch on Planning Commission's recommendations. To clarify why, it's because we're wanting apartments. So for them to restrict us, it's large in part with the multifamily, and that would be in the mixed use that we have that concern. And so to Councilman Belliston's point, I mean, we can come back, but also feels good to be vested to some extent.
Sure.
But that's
You
the
can ask for the
clarification.
world.
Yeah, so we, just to clarify, the residential that you're seeing on there would be like a single-family resident, and then apartments would be under the same context of hotel, condo, use of the 60. So,
Thank you.
any questions?
You have any questions or comments? Council, you see what's been asked for. Happy to facilitate further discussion, staff and the applicant are still here. I'm also happy to entertain a motion if anyone feels ready.
I'm happy to make one.
Can I ask another question, Mayor?
Of course.
Okay. So I know our standard residential is 35 feet, right? I'm very well aware of that. Tell me, Drew, what's the commercial and professional office? Is it 46?
Our multifamily's 42 and our commercial is 45. And I'd say professional office space, I'm gonna throw those all into that kind of commercial blend and say 45 is what our city height is now.
It's kind of typical for us on a hotel and stuff, at least last few years, to go with a, you know, they're usually like 60, right? So.
Yeah.
Is there any reason that you're not just, because I'm actually more comfortable just one project at a time on the height variance instead of, you know, a blanket approach. I mean, communicate to me why I should be excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Our focus with the apartments is to provide more affordable housing. So we do need that extra height to get that extra level to make things more affordable, obviously going up versus taking land. We are restricted to density, so the extra height really doesn't increase our densities because we're within this PCD, we're capped. So we can only do so much regardless if it's, you know, spread out horizontally or we stack it vertically. So just trying to alleviate some of your guys' headache, honestly, going back and forth, and that way we can plan accordingly. Or these are master plan neighborhoods and communities and they've been marketing them to specific builders. It's easier to go in there and have a comfortability level saying, yes, you're able to do this, rather than let's go hash it out with council every time. You know, that's really what it is.
Randy, does your densities that's already been approved, do they correlate with the height that you're asking for now so that they're in conjunction with each other so that you have enough room for the density that you've been given?
They do, yeah. When we came in, this is really only applicable to the hospitality zone, or excuse me, the mixed use zone. The hospitality zone will not have, you know, apartment style housing. It'll have condo hotel style. So this is really the mixed use. This is where we intend to hit that more affordable market and provide an option for somebody who, you know, can't, larger estate lots or the height, you know, they would get in expensive homes. So yeah, we'd like to go up. That way we do maximize on our open space with parks and, you know, what we intend to build as far as the pickleball and all that stuff that takes up land.
Whereas this plan, the height that you're asking for now correlates with the density that you were given, and that was your overall plan and idea.
Correct.
So you're asking for 7 different pods to be automatically given these heights, right?
No, we're only asking for mixed use tonight. So this chart actually exists.
Village 12B, 13, 14, 26,
Oh.
18, 19, and 28.
Okay, so I get what you're saying. Yeah, sorry.
So it's 7 pods that you're asking for automatic height variance or height waiver. I don't see how it's so onerous to have to come in and bring a project in so the council can see it.
Well, we will
I
be
mean, we
bringing.
still have to do CUPs over certain sizes.
Exactly. You
That's
guys will
still
see the project.
a similar process that you already have to go through.
Again, it's going back to having a level of comfort with these guys marketing it to be able to say, yeah, you can build this
I
apartment. you can
think they
build
got
this.
their level of comfort a couple weeks ago.
Any additional questions for the applicant? Thank you, Brandy. The request, the zone change request is for 3 items. It's to change the name from Stuckey Farms to Alea. It's to assign building heights as listed on the table within the mixed use and hospitality areas. And thirdly, it's to revise the pod numbers to align with the current site plan. Sometimes it helps me to break down for simplicity what the request is.
Can I make a motion?
I've called for a further discussion and or motion. Sorry, I'm giving it back to you just a little
I'm
bit after
happy
the
to make a
second.
motion.
Although Councilman Coates, you had your moment there, you know, it wasn't a clear second.
Like to jump in and make. I would like to make a motion that under ordinance zone change Z-25-13, we approve the name change from Stuckey Farms to Aaliyah. We approve the revised pod numbers to align with the current site plan, but we deny the height adjustments.
You've heard the motion as stated by Councilman Belliston. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilman Coates. There's a motion and a second, so we're going to go roll call vote on this, beginning with Councilmember Ivy.
I do see some benefit in bringing projects back. I think that'd be okay. I will vote aye.
Casperson,
Aye.
Belliston,
Aye.
Henderson,
Aye.
Coates.
Aye.
Item 4D is partially approved, with the name being officially changed from Stuckey Farms to Alea. And the pod numbers are now aligning with the current site plan. However, building heights, any variance from current code will need to be brought back to council for approval.
So Mayor and Council, just for clarity as to how staff will interpret the decision tonight. Some of these pods are newly created that hadn't been given a height measurement in prior zone decisions. And so based on the language, we will just include an interpretation of this motion, setting them at code standard right now. And so then anything above code standard would need to come in on a height variance. But if they're at or below code standard, we would process them as within the standard that was, the code that was given to them tonight.
Okay. All right. We have already addressed agreements, which was item 7A. We'll move along to section 8 of the agenda, which is report of officers from assigned committee. As is customary, we'll start with Councilmember Belliston.
We had a riveting investment committee last week.
You're going to steal my thunder?
Councilman Coates and I are on the same committee, so he will have the same report that Brittany and Jeremy are doing a fantastic job.
The latter approach is working well as they're rolling off and coming back on.
We're in good shape.
It's the pride of Kerry Wheelwright, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just so you'll know, some of the investments still have his name on it. And I've noticed that, so, just because they haven't rolled off yet.
Okay. Councilman Henderson.
I had a riveting mosquito meeting, and it really is a good meeting. I joke about it a lot, but I'll tell you what, that special service district is very well run. And every time I see their finances, I mean, they save money every year. I think they put away about $100,000 in their capital facilities fund, every year, and they run a tight ship over there.
Is it Sean Abbott down there?
Yes.
Went to every single grade of school with Sean.
He's great. He's great.
He's a wonderful guy.
But, they're doing a good job. I mean, if you don't get bitten by mosquitoes, then that's,
We're just glad to get some rain to, at least have that as a worry.
Yeah.
I see them all the time down at the landfill road.
Yeah.
That must be a hotbed for mosquitoes, because they're down there spraying.
Hot spot down there. So, yeah, they do a great job. I enjoy being on that committee, so thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Coates.
Oh, yeah, so I'm not going to go into detail on the financial because Troy did, but as far as the power board goes, we had a meeting. It went good. There'll be some things that I think some updates coming shortly with the power board, but nothing really to report tonight. One of the big things at the landfill, we're open at the landfill with the new scale house. There's been some, growing pains with the new scale house. One of the growing pains is the stacking distance for cars is a little shorter than it was before. And then the other thing that we've implemented is because every resident gets 1 ton free a month to dispose for free as part of their package. So, no, it's 1 ton. So you can drop off anything you want, go there as long as it's from your residence, not your business, and you can drop off free of charge. They still have to weigh it and monitor it and where it goes. But with that, we've started, because there are some people that are being, I should say, not so honest in the past, I've seen,
So they're trying to implement with the new software, we're able to scan driver's IDs. So if you're going there, please get out your ID first, because that's been a little slow down. And then if they don't have an ID, which blows my mind how many people don't have a current ID in this town, because it's grown so much. I sat there for an hour last Thursday, because I'm trying to help solve the problem, right? And people come in, and I bet half the people did not have a current Utah driver's license. They were from a different state, or they hadn't updated it yet, or their address wasn't right. And if their address isn't right, then on their driver's license, then they have to hand type it in. And so it takes just a minute longer. It's kind of a growing pain. One of the things we talked about is just not doing that on Saturdays, but we're not sure. We do have two.
I mean, how much would it cost just to pay the cost to dump a ton, 2,000 pounds?
Anything over a cent get a complaint. So
27 bucks a ton.
It's not a lot, but it's more of the fact of, and we also don't want to change the policy and then just tell people they have to pay all of a sudden, right? So we're trying to work with them. We do have 2 lanes now, but that second lane was set up primary for the Republic trucks and just scan and go, and the commercial guys that have, like Councilman Henderson. I don't know if you have yet, but you should sign up for the second lane where you can get a fob, and then you go there enough, it just bills your account.
Okay, I was gonna mention this, but they offered that to me today, and I felt really special, like I was one of their special customers.
They know you enough, so they want people who have commercial businesses to get them, because you don't have to talk to a scale house attendant. You just roll up, weigh, scan, go, and leave.
That's not as fun.
Yeah,
it's not as fun.
Don't get to visit with the people there.
Well, you're slowing down the line, so get it, and let's keep it moving. But the other thing we're looking at is some additional software to open that second lane on Saturdays. Did I lose the council? No one's paying attention now. I should just be quiet. All right, I'll move on. And I'm done then, Mayor.
She was like, move on.
Thank you, Councilman Coates. Councilman Ivey.
Councilman Henderson, you are special, even though everyone gets a fob, for sure. So we have MPO next week, and that's going to be a meeting. There's done a lot of work going into that one. The interim legislative sessions, there's been a lot of preparation and conversations and meetings about those that are coming, and some things that we've heard in the legislative session that are coming back again that we kind of planned on. But really, Mayor, I want to spend most of the time tonight just commenting on the police department banquet. It was really special. Councilman Belliston and Councilman Henderson and I were there, and it was really a nice event to hang out and something that I want to share that just is one of those stories that I really like to hear is that I asked Chief, I said, so who draws the short straw and has to work tonight? And he goes, Hurricane City covers us during our banquet, and we cover them. And I just thought that was really a neat thing for us to do. But they awarded Officer of the Year and promotions and different things. And so it was really a great night. The dinner was wonderful. And we had some special guests there from a bureau that has helped with some pretty serious cases in our city, and a special investigative unit that has helped us out. And we were able to meet them and thank them for their help. And overall, it was just a really good evening. Met some of the officers' families and just told them that we appreciate them, and that that we understand that it's not just them that's on the police department, it's their whole family, and we appreciate that sacrifice. And we remain committed to them as they're committed to protecting our community.
Well, thank you for being there, and thank you, Lieutenant Finona, for all you and your department do for our city. We appreciate it. Councilwoman Casperson.
Well, I just want everyone to put on their schedule our bike event coming up for the council. That's going to be on May 28th for our city council workshop meeting. And I'm hoping that we can get the city manager there, all of the staff members in here. We'll make it big. It's going to be a party, right, guys?
You say bye to Councilman Casperson or Councilman Belliston, to that means Harley Davidson. Yeah.
You have to have
Bring his Harley.
You have to have a bicycle that has can't even bring yours.
Exhaust.
No throttles.
No
allowed.
e-bikes.
No e-bikes. No Harleys.
You just hurt Jeremy's feelings.
I don't have a regular bike.
Should we get a trailer and a training wheel and I'll pull Councilman Belliston up the road?
Where are we gonna ride?
That's going to be announced. It's gonna be a surprise,
Okay,
This 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
that'll be great. And then Suba is gonna be there, the Bicycle Alliance and the whole gang.
Remind us.
Okay. That'll be awesome. Anything else on,
That's it for me.
okay? And then I'll just make a quick note that the Bishop Storehouse has arrived. It has successfully been placed next to the Covington home in that parking area, and it looks wonderful. I drove by and saw it today. The spot, it's a really nice fit there. It's larger than I thought, and there's a little bit of work to be done and cleaning up the inside and getting some of that outside and kind of that around the foundation set, but it's going to be really nice. And my question is, are you going to treat the wood? Are you going to treat the wood and nod as a yes? Okay, good. I was wondering that. So I just, Barry, I know that was a big project for you and some of your guys, and I know you had to try to get creative in how to, move a 150, 165, 167-year-old Bishop Storehouse back to about as close to its original pioneer location as we could possibly get. So well done. And that's all I have. Next item on the agenda is the city manager report. Did I steal your thunder, Jeremy?
Yeah, you all stole my thunder. It's fine. I have nothing to report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
We do have need to go to closed session, which is the last item before adjournment. We have 3 items that we will be efficient with. So, council, I'm going to call for a motion to go into closed session for purchase, exchange, or lease of property and pending or potential litigation.
So made, Mayor.
Motion by Councilman Ivy, second by Councilman Belliston. All in favor? Can I get some ayes down here?
Aye.
That is approved unanimously, 5-0. We'll have a quick 5-minute break. We'll be meeting the boardroom.